cloud adoption amongst world governments, how ERP vendors are using artificial intelligence, and lessons from tech titans in the industry. Those are just a few of the topics we're going to cover here today in episode number 168 of Transformation Ground Control.
Welcome to Transformation Ground Control. Ground Control. The podcast that covers everything related to digital transformation. This podcast features technology agnostic and international discussions related to digital strategy, software selection, implementation, change management, business process optimization, and everything else you need to know to make your digital transformation project successful. Whether you're embarking on an ERP implementation, supply chain transformation, or any other business or digital transformation, this podcast is for you. Now, here's your host, Eric Kimberling.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to episode number 168 of Transformation Ground Control. My name is Eric Kimberling, your host for today. This is the podcast that has everything to do with digital transformation, including the strategy, people, process, and technology aspects of transformation. I work for a company called Third Stage Consulting, which is an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. Third Stage is also a sponsor of this show, and it is produced by Major Tom Productions. You can get new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. You can also find past episodes at that same website, transformationgroundcontrol.com. Got a great show for you today. We're going to cover a few different topics. First, we're going to get into some audience questions regarding cloud adoption, regarding a semi-controversial or engaging video discussion that's happening on YouTube with some content we posted there regarding cloud adoption. We're going to talk about the dark side of cloud and some of the comments related to the dark side of cloud. And then we're also going to talk about, in addition to those questions related to that dark side of cloud video, we're also going to get into some recent news and statements from Larry Ellison from Oracle and his view on how cloud adoption amongst world governments is coming along. And then later in the show, we're going to have several guests in this episode. There's actually going to be a multitude of industry leaders that we're going to get to here in this episode. It's a very exciting, star-studded episode here today. So we're going to actually keep our opening segment a little shorter than usual just to get to these guests. Our second segment today, we're going to get into how ERP vendors are using artificial intelligence. In that conversation, we're going to have several panelists join me here in a few minutes. Panelists from SAP, Oracle, NetSuite, Epicor, Infor, Priority Software, and Rootstock, along with Technology Evaluation Centers, which is another independent technology analyst firm based out of Canada. That entire panel is going to be joining me all at once, even though many of them are competitors and rivals, or they are competitors and rivals. They're all going to be joining me for a panel discussion to talk about how each of their companies are using AI and building AI into their ERP system. So that should be a great conversation. And then finally, later in the show, we're going to have a discussion around lessons from tech titans. We're going to talk to the executives and leadership at 5 different companies, Oracle, NetSuite, Epicor, Infor, Odoo, and Baan. Baan no longer exists as a company, but it does exist as a product, and it's often considered sort of the pioneer of the ERP industry, and we'll have Jan Baan on the show along with the leadership from those other 4 companies I mentioned. So stick around from that. A really interesting conversation with some of the leaders of some of these technology companies. So a lot of great stuff happening here today in this episode. So just to jump in, let's jump into some questions that, or some comments we've gotten, actually, questions and comments related to a recent video I published on my YouTube channel that is called The Dark Side. It's basically talking about the dark side of cloud software and how some of the vulnerabilities and disadvantages of cloud are going to materialize here in the next few years. And actually, what's interesting about this video is I actually hesitated and was a little nervous to post this video because I posted a video similar to this 4 or 5 years ago, and I just got roasted, because people sort of accused me of not being in touch with reality because I wasn't on the pro cloud bandwagon. I fully acknowledge that cloud is where we're going, but I also like to point out that there are disadvantages and you're making trade-offs when you move to the cloud, just like any major technology decision you might make. And so I was a little nervous to put this video out because in the past, it has not always gone well when I've sort of challenged the narrative of the industry. And so I put this video out, and actually the comments were overwhelmingly in agreement with what I'm saying in this video, which is Of course, there are benefits to cloud systems, but there are also disadvantages, and the industry oftentimes refuses to discuss the disadvantages because it undermines their sales message and ultimately their profitability if people start to doubt the cloud. And I don't say this stuff to doubt the cloud or to cast a dark shadow or a shadow of doubt on cloud adoption, but I do it because if you're going to the cloud, which most organizations are, you just have to recognize what you're getting into. That's all it is. So it's a matter of identifying what those risks are. And so I posted this video, which I encourage you to check out on my YouTube channel. And got a lot of interesting comments here that I'm just going to go through some of the questions and comments here. One is from a user on YouTube who said, your position on the matter is always on point. My only consideration is that almost every enterprise installation is unique, with too many factors affecting the outcome over the years. Very true statement. You know, some organizations are going to get more value out of cloud than others. For some organizations, it makes total sense to move to the cloud and to do it as quickly as possible. But for some organizations, they're not going to realize the ROI as quickly as others might. And in some cases, they might actually be spending more on their cloud software and cloud applications longer term than they might have spent on premise. Not to say the value is not there, not to say that they shouldn't do it anyway, but I'm just saying in this video and in general, my view is, and my experience from having worked with so many different companies, is that you actually are going to spend more potentially on your cloud system longer term because it's a lot like leasing a car. You're paying ongoing lease payments essentially that never go away. And now, yes, of course, when you lease a car, you don't have to worry about maintenance and repairs and things of that nature, but that payment never goes away. Same thing is true for the cloud too. So just something to be aware of there. Another comment here on this video is, thanks for all your videos. Our corporate office just implemented Workday and it's chaos. I was forewarned thanks to your previous videos. So not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing. At least I guess they knew what to expect, but I'm sorry to hear that the Workday implementation was chaos in the case there. Here's an interesting comment from Mark F. on YouTube. Mark says, very interesting impartial view on cloud and SaaS. From my experience, I work in the Dynamics Business Central space, or Dynamics 365 Business Central space, and there's a huge drive to get on-prem customers into the cloud version. I believe there are pros and cons on either side, but for people involved in sales and account management, it's much easier for them to sell the short-term value versus the long-term risks. So great point there, and I totally agree. Salespeople are heavily incentivized to sell cloud. They are commissioned better on cloud, and in some cases, they don't make commission for selling on-prem options. So you just have to be aware of that. There are some sales reps that just refuse to sell you software because they don't make any money off it. In many cases. So you just have to be aware that there's economic drivers here that might be outside of your control, have nothing to do with your organization, but it does affect how you're being sold to over time. Another comment here from Billy Vitale, 8994 on YouTube. Billy says, cloud vendors are locking in their customer base with startup discounts and other. They know very well once you have moved and adapted, there's no turning back. Cost savings then is a non-issue, and they can at some point increase what they charge. Now what? Great point, and I totally agree. The vendor lock-in is sort of a scary thing because you're going to end up with a lot of organizations that feel like they're being held hostage by their software vendors, especially in cases where they've gone all in on one vendor, their entire ERP system, their entire set of applications are all through one vendor. Scary position to be in. You're giving all your leverage to one party, and it's all your operational data. You think about it, never has the world of business seen a situation like this where businesses are giving up so much control and giving up so much ownership to third parties. And that's just, for me personally as a business owner, that's a scary thing. So interesting to see how that shakes out over the years. Another question here from TechPiler on YouTube, or TechPiler is the name of the user on YouTube. Refreshing point of view, and I agree 100%. Public cloud offerings will always exist and will continue to take share away from on-prem. However, sooner rather than later, there will be a migration of critical workloads back to on-prem or colo, where the owner can have full jurisdiction of the technology stacks as IT managers realize the constraints of cloud. So great point there, and I do agree that's something that's highly likely to happen. Another comment here from, Sadihar Reddy on YouTube. Says, well said, lack of flexibility is real. Also, lack of options to consider once someone moves into a cloud native scenario. This is on the lines of getting locked in, but slightly on a different tone. Also, microservices are forced in with cloud-native applications where on-prem would allow more freedom in choosing the architecture best suited for you. Great comment there. Another comment on YouTube. My experience is that cloud surpasses on-premise costs in about 3 years. If you're looking at a 5 to 7 year break even for cloud versus on-premise, then cloud may be cheaper, as you're going to have hardware software refreshes every 5 to 7 years, including repurchasing of software in many cases. And this is actually a question we covered, or we got into, I think, last week or the week before on this podcast, that same comment, because the video had just come out when we filmed that episode. And, one thing I found, I totally agree that cloud can surpass on-prem costs in about 3 years. I think it takes more like 5 years before the total cost of ownership of cloud starts to exceed that of on-prem, but whatever you want to call it, 3, 5, or 7 years. At some point, cloud does start to cost more than on-prem. But what I think this person's saying is longer term, as you start to look at upgrading your physical infrastructure, if you do on-prem, that's where the real costs come in. And I'm kind of torn on this because hardware costs and infrastructure costs have come down so much over the years that it's not as big of a cost as it used to be. It still is a cost. It's still something you have to do and invest in that you don't have to worry about if you have cloud. But I don't know that cost necessarily eclipses the cost of the annual subscriptions that never go away and continue to escalate over time. So good stuff there. Hit one more comment here. Good points, all of them, but 10 years from now, there'll be no more on-premise installations. With the amount of computing AI technologies need, no company in the world will be able to afford on-premise with no cloud solution. And actually, this might be one of the better points I've seen here, one of the better cases for why cloud is superior to on-prem. And I totally agree with this, by the way. All the AI stuff that we're getting to now in the world, it can't be handled by most organizations' internal infrastructure. Most organizations just can't build an infrastructure that can support AI and the mass amounts of computing that's needed there. So great point there. And I still stand by my comment, though, that it still is going to cost you more. But the upside here is if you pay more and if you're spending more long-term on cloud, the assumption is that you're going to get value out of it that justifies that cost. And I think that's where we're headed. And we're sort of at a tipping point here where I think eventually this all becomes a moot point. We're all in the cloud and we're getting more value to justify the higher cost. But I think for the next few years, we're going to see a transition period where companies start to question the cloud and say, hey, we're spending a lot of money on this. We spent all this time and money to move to the cloud. Now these costs are increasing over time. The costs are never going away, and we're locked into a vendor, and we don't know what to do when we need to get out. And I think that's the sort of reckoning that I still think is yet to come, but we'll see how that unfolds. And, it's interesting about this video and some of the comments I'm getting here. There are a couple comments, to be sure, or to be clear. I think there were 1 or 2 comments in here that are basically saying they disagree. They think on-prem, or I'm sorry, the cloud is actually cheaper than on-prem longer term, and that there's way more advantages to cloud than there are on-prem. But for the most part, people, most of the comments I saw on this video, people were agreeing. But what's really interesting is I mentioned at the beginning of the segment that a few years ago I posted a video that was sort of questioning cloud, and it wasn't part of that mainstream pro-cloud narrative. And I just got shredded and roasted, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember I was in a debate online through social media with a sales rep who represented, I think it was Oracle or maybe Workday or one of the big cloud vendors. And they were telling me that, no, you're absolutely wrong. Every business case I've seen shows that cloud is cheaper. And so I asked the question, well, what do you mean by business case? Do you mean like your assumptions in a business case and you actually realized those lower costs? And keep in mind, this is a few years ago when most companies were just starting their journey to the cloud. And so I kind of questioned, like, really, you've seen that many business cases for cloud adoption when we're just sort of getting into this whole cloud thing? And he said, no, the clients haven't even implemented the software yet, but our business case shows that they will save money. And so basically we got into a debate of whether or not that was real. And I was saying, well, you're creating a hypothetical business case, an academic theoretical business case. And I'm talking about the reality of what I'm seeing with clients right now is that the long-term TCO or total cost of ownership is higher for cloud than on-prem in the calculations we're doing. And we're doing this independently, agnostically. We're not affiliated with cloud vendors or on-premise vendors or any other vendors for that matter. And so it's really interesting to hear, that sort of debate or that sort of pushback to these comments a few years ago. But now I posted a similar message, and it seems like the market is recognizing that, yes, there are risks to cloud. So I think that's a good thing. I think that's good that we all are aware of these risks. I'm not suggesting we change our paths away from the cloud, but we just have to be very aware of it and plan for those risks. So anyway, good stuff there. Thank you for all the great comments there, and I encourage you to check out that video on YouTube. It's called Have the Vulnerabilities of Cloud and SaaS ERP Software Finally Been Exposed? And the thumbnail you'll see on my channel is the death of cloud software, which that's what I thought was really going to be a trigger for a lot of people in the industry, but so far it hasn't been. So if you want to push back and tell me I'm full of it, feel free to go to that video, or if you agree to it, feel free to go to the video and comment there. I'd love to hear the comments there. And actually comment in this chat too on this podcast episode. I'd love to see your comments in the chat here, wherever you're watching here today. What do you think of the cloud? What are the advantages or disadvantages? Do you think it's a net good thing, a net bad thing? Do you have concerns or fears? What are your thoughts on the cloud? I'd love to hear your comments, so be sure to drop those in the chat. And speaking of the cloud, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to talk a little bit about Larry Ellison and his view of cloud adoption. So be sure to stick around. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control. Steve, we've chatted before, but remind me and our audience a little bit more about Epicor and where you're focused these days.
Hey, Eric, yep, good to talk to you, and thanks for asking. So Epicor, what we do is we make and sell cloud software for the global supply chain. And when I say that, when a customer purchases our software, we're committed to running their day-to-day business. And this would include everything from finance and procurement to production and sales. It's a responsibility we take very seriously, and it's something I believe we're very good at. We've got an employee base that has the deep expertise to understand their business and run their business. We also compete against 2 or 3 of the largest software companies in the world. So it's not good enough for our products to be good. They have to be consistently great, and that's a really important focus for me. So great products, deep industry expertise. We also focus on the essential workers that make those businesses run. We like to say Epicor's got you covered from the shop floor to the top floor. And when we say that, we really mean it. So that's Epicor.
It also suggests that you're not necessarily trying to be everything to everyone. You've got a pretty deliberate purpose and focus.
No, you're right. We really don't. So we focus on the make, move, and sell economy, which would really be manufacturing, distribution, and retail, like a retail operation. Well said. We don't try to be everything to everyone. We really do specialize and focus. And it is one of the secrets of our success. I guess it's not too secret anymore, but it's an area of focus for sure.
The last thing you want to have happen is for your digital transformation to end up in court. I've been doing this for 20 years and I have seen everything. My name is Marcus Harris. I'm a software and technology attorney focusing my practice on drafting and negotiating software-related contracts and litigating software disputes across the country. Feel free to reach out to us at taftlaw.com. We'd love to talk to you about the litigation process and what you can expect.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 168. My name is Eric Kimberling, and you can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. You can also see all the past episodes that we've ever published of this podcast by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. The show is sponsored by Third Stage Consulting, an independent consulting firm that does digital transformation consulting, and that's the company I work for, and the show is produced by Major Tom Productions. So I've got a really interesting article here regarding Larry Ellison and his view of cloud adoption in the government space. And this is something that really fascinates me because you look at the reasons why organizations might not implement cloud solutions or why they might not want to move from on-prem to cloud. And, it may sound crazy to some listening right now, like who would possibly resist the movement to the cloud. Government's a great example of a type of organization that's going to probably be a late adopter. They already are a late adopter to the cloud, and they probably will continue to be a laggard in technology adoption as it relates to the cloud, not just because you have highly tenured people that have been at a lot of these government agencies for a long time throughout the world, not only because these are big, massive institutions that don't have a profit motive necessarily, and they just tend to move a little bit slower than the private sector. Those aren't the real reasons. The real reasons, although to be clear, I would say those are contributing factors. But I think the real reason why, or why government entities throughout the world are not adopting the cloud as quickly has been well stated here by Larry Ellison. And now, to be clear, he's very bullish on governments moving to the cloud. But in this article, which was published in CNBC, it was actually on CNBC from early April. So it was a few weeks ago, this article came out. And in this article, he talks about how governments are going to accelerate their technology adoption and their cloud adoption, but the way it's going to happen is through this concept called the sovereign cloud. And so, or sovereign, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It's a word I hardly ever use, sovereign or sovereign, whichever one it is. I hopefully you know which word I'm referring to. But it's sort of like its own standalone cloud, its own carve out within a bigger cloud environment or within a big hyperscaler. You're going to have like a dedicated cloud environment. And he's talking about how that's the key to governments adopting cloud technologies and allows them to feel more comfortable with data being protected, not being commingled with other entities and whatnot. And so he talks about how a lot of national governments throughout the world, like Serbia, I think is one example he talks about in his statement or his discussion with the press, where he talks about how companies like Serbia and Albania, I think was another one, where he's talking about how not only are countries and governments in those countries moving to the cloud, but they're also using generative AI to help with some of their legal or some of their government and legal type stuff that they're working on as government entities. And so it's really interesting. But then as you read the article, a lot of industry analysts were interviewed for this article, and they were talking about how it's just not feasible for governments to move some functions and some data sets to the cloud because of the sensitivity of it. So they're talking about in the case of disaster recovery, those may not be areas where they want to move quickly because they want to have control and reliability that they might think that they can do better themselves. There's also the concerns that are brought up in this article about generative AI and whether governments really should or can be using generative AI, knowing that generative AI and open AI models and things like that are going to potentially expose confidential information to the public via a sort of an open AI model. So that's one thing that's sort of an area of potential resistance or a roadblock to cloud adoption in government. And then they also talk a lot too about geopolitical concerns and how modern day warfare and conflicts between governments, there's just a sensitivity or heightened sensitivity to having sensitive data in the cloud that other government or nefarious actors might want to try to get at. And so they show or express some concern with cloud adoption in that regard too. So those are a few things to keep in mind, but I'd be curious to hear from the audience too, what you think about cloud adoption within government entities. And also if you think about like aerospace and defense or even when you start to get into things like food manufacturing or critical essential services like utilities, gas and electric utilities, telco, as far as just telco communications, should these entities have their data and their core critical business functions in the cloud? Is that more reliable than what they might build for themselves if they had their own on-prem or their own instance of software and infrastructure? Love to hear the audience questions there. I don't know that there's a clear answer to this question because again, there's trade-offs to this, just as we talked about in the opening segment with the audience questions. There's a lot of different trade-offs there, so I'd be curious to hear from the audience what your thoughts are on government and other highly regulated and highly sensitive types of industries. Will they be slow to adopt to the cloud? Will they ever fully adopt the cloud? What are your thoughts there? Curious to hear your opinions there. So with that all being said, I'm going to shift gears here after a quick break. We're going to bring on this big, massive panel of ERP vendors. We have 6 of them in particular. That's a panel of one person from each of the following vendors: SAP, Oracle, NetSuite, Epicor, Infor, Priority Software, and Rootstock. And we're also going to have technology evaluation centers on that same panel, who's not a software vendor, but they're an analyst firm based out of Canada that'll be on the panel as well. They're going to be on talking about how ERP vendors are using AI in their products. So as they are developing the roadmaps for the future and even just deploying AI capabilities to customers now, what are they doing? What are they seeing? Like, what's the reality of what customers are actually using and consuming within the world of AI now, and what's on the roadmap for the future? What types of AI things are they going to build in the future? So we're going to cover all that with this great group of panelists here. It's going to be awesome, so I'm really looking forward to it. And then I'm also looking forward to the last segment today because Once we're done with that panel discussion, we're going to play you this clip of a video I did where I sort of take a compilation of 5 different leaders within the technology space. And these are executives at the C-level at several different software vendors, including NetSuite, Epicor, Infor, Odoo, and Baan. And Baan is no longer around, as I mentioned at the top of the podcast episode. Baan's no longer around, but Jan Baan was the founder of that company. And he's sort of the godfather, in my opinion, the godfather of ERP systems. So we had to have him in there, and I was really thrilled to have him as part of that compilation. So you're going to get to hear me interview and ask some interesting questions of all these different tech leaders, tech titans, if you will. So lessons from tech titans, that'll be on later in the show. Be sure to stick around for all this stuff coming up real soon. First, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with more Transformation Ground Control. People oftentimes ask me how I built such a strong social media following on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and other outlets. And the fact of the matter is it took me a long time to build a following through a lot of trial and error, making a lot of mistakes. Had I known that there were companies out there that could help me build my brand, I would have done that a long time ago. I didn't know that, but the good news is that there is today a consulting firm that will help you through building your own personal brand through some of their training programs. The company is called Roloff Consulting, and if you're familiar with Emma Roloff, she's someone that I've had on this podcast before, and she's well known in the digital transformation space as well as the sales space, and she's big on TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And she and her husband have started a training course and a training company that focuses on helping people build their personal brands and helping them to sell themselves digitally. So whether you're a salesperson that's trying to reach more customers or you're an individual that's just trying to build your personal brand, that's something that they help with through their training programs. And they've offered listeners of this podcast a free 5-day LinkedIn challenge. And I encourage you to check it out. I've included a link below for this podcast. If you go to the podcast notes, you'll find a link that gets you free access to this 5-day challenge where you'll get step-by-step guidance. You'll get real results. So you'll get some tangible results from the program. And you also get a special offer at the end of it. So it's exclusive to listeners of this podcast. Be sure to check out the link below if you want to work on building your personal brand, or if you're in sales and you're trying to reach more people. Whatever the case may be, check it out. It's free to listeners of this podcast. You can check it out via the link below.
Interested in working for a company that truly values your unique skills and experience? Here at Third Stage, we don't hire based on resumes alone. We look at the full candidate, experience, and willingness to provide excellent service for our clients. Within a technology, independent, and agnostic consulting firm, you have the opportunity to learn across industries with a diverse group of clients. Our consultants also have the opportunity to diversify their portfolio and learn across technology systems. If you're interested in joining a high-growth entrepreneurial organization, please reach out to us at work@thirdstage-consulting.com.
Hello and welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 168. My name is Eric Kimberling with Third Stage Consulting Group. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformations, including software selection, implementation planning, and implementation. We're not affiliated with any software vendors, so we can agnostically and objectively help you and your team select and implement whatever technologies make the most sense for your organization. So you can learn more about us at thirdstage-consulting.com. Be sure to check that out. And our company is the one that sponsors this podcast, and the podcast is produced by Major Tom Productions. So speaking of software vendors, even though we're not affiliated with any software vendors, we wanted to bring them all together to chat about AI and how AI is being built into their software, how their customers are using AI, what some of the obstacles to adoption are with AI, some of the human components of AI. There's a ton of stuff I want to ask these guys. So great panel discussion. We've got representatives from SAP, Oracle, NetSuite, Epicor, Infor, Priority Software, Rootstock, and Technology Evaluation Centers.
Never would I ever think I would get you all on the same live stream, aside from maybe at a bar over drinks. But one of the great things is that all of these vendors are actually going to be at the Enterprise Software Showcase, which is being held in May 7th to 9th in Orlando, Florida. One of the great opportunities for everyone to get an idea of what's going on with their digital transformation strategies, how they can support you, future building out roadmaps, and even more importantly, You can network with consultants, thought leaders, and have private meetings with all of them one-on-one.
Yeah, promises to be a great event, and all of us here will be there, myself included. Obviously, you'll be there, Christian, and all these vendors that you see here will be there as well. And really excited for that, and looking forward to that event here in just a few weeks. So we know that since the mid 2010s, that's really when the whole AI thing started to really take off, and it's really been just in the last year and a half, I'd say, that the mass mainstream knowledge and understanding of AI has really escalated with ChatGPT and pop culture references to ChatGPT and AI and things of that nature. So really excited to chat here today about what it means to enterprise technology. You know, there's a lot of buzz around it, a lot of excitement, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of things we're still trying to figure out in the AI world. But we've got a lot of people on the forefront of emerging technologies like AI here today, and we're going to really dive into what AI means to ERP software today and the ways we should be thinking about it. So just to give everyone a real quick intro, and then I'm going to let each guest introduce themselves as we get through the questions here. We have Carrie from Epicor. We have Karen from Priority. We have Ranga from Netsuite, Rick from Infor, Raj from Rootstock, and Jeff is here from SAP, or an SAP VAR, representing the SAP ecosystem. So I'll let them all introduce themselves as we get into the questions here. But that's who we have in front of us: Epicor, Priority, NetSuite, Infor, Rootstock, and it's SAP via one of their partners. So to get started, I'm gonna start with Karen from Priority Software. I'm gonna ask you this question to start, Karen. And what would you say have been the practical implications of incorporating artificial intelligence into ERP solutions?
Thank you, Eric. Hi, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today. Just to introduce myself before I'm answering the question. I'm Karen Scherer-Teiber, the VP Product Management at Priority Software. I'm in the ERP and business application industry for the last 26 years, which is more or less since I was born, doing different positions, both on the professional and on the business side. And in the last 10 years, I'm leading the Priority product group at Priority Software. Priority is a veteran technology leader in that arena. We have tens of thousands of organizations that using our cloud, open, agile business application platforms in more than 20 industries, 30 countries. And I'm really proud to be here today and to share our experience with incorporating AI and maybe other emerging technologies into our solutions. So for your question, Eric, I think that AI and ERP or any other business application is something that is actually all over the place. It's not a hype anymore, as you just mentioned. It's a real thing. A lot of organizations are already deployed AI capabilities. And we can talk, and I'm sure we will talk in this session about productivity, about cost reduction, about predicted analytics, about planning and forecasting. But I want to choose something that is quite different, and this is the experience, the user experience. And I'm choosing that one because user experience was since ever one of the challenges of business application. How can you take all that comprehensive, rich, complex functionality and just make it intuitive to the person who needs to use it? How can you make similar experience like the private application you used to have in his device? And it's almost impossible but when it comes to AI, it's becoming very simple, because today users have different set of expectation from the ERP system. They are not required and they are not interested to do all that bulk, repetitive, massive transaction recording as they used to do. And here come the automation. But it's not just a simple automation. Of course, also automation all the ways through process automation and RPA, that we can record to the system and teach the system what process it can do for us. We can have the system autofill some data for us. We can make the system just activate the third-party application for us by webhooks. We can do many things by automation, but when it comes to AI, it's not only the automation, it's also the fact that those modules can actually learn and train themselves to fix the mistakes they already did and maybe some mistakes that if a human being have done those transactions, he will also have. So we reduce the errors of the human being, and we actually have an extreme innovative digital experience for the user itself. And it's not end on that place, because AI also can think faster and take into consideration a lot of data that a human being maybe can do, but it will take a lot of time and not will be in a real time. So when you are getting insight from the system, and you can do whatever you can do whenever you're looking at transactions such as upselling the point of sale or whatever, then you really improve everything in your organization processes. So that's part of the experience. I can talk a lot also about personalization and the fact that the system can just learn and monitor the user behavior and make sure that the workspace, the UI workspace of the ERP is exactly what it needs, and he is not enjoying or suffering from all that rich and busy forms of an ERP system.
Yeah, no, that's great. And Carrie from Epicor, what are your thoughts on that too? What are some of the implications of incorporating AI into ERP softwares, and how do you guys view that at Epicor?
Yeah, happy to talk about that. And thank you so much for putting on this event, because I think it's really important to get the message across that ERP should be at the core of your AI strategy. So Carrie Jordan, I'm the Group Vice President of Product Management at Epicor. Epicor is $1 billion. Actually, we just surpassed our $1 billion mark. There is a press release that went out this week, so we're really excited about that. Our CFO is actually at the New York Stock Exchange talking about it right now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're a global provider of ERP solutions for what we call the make, move, sell economy. Those are manufacturers, distributors, building supply, retail, and automotive aftermarket. And when it comes to incorporating AI into ERP, the reason I say it should be core to the AI strategy is because that's where all of that critical business data is. And it should be, because it's in the ERP, already structured. So there's a sophisticated data ontology that allows you to apply AI in a way that reduces hallucinations, that provides accurate responses, so you can use it in business, consequential business decisions. So very, very important. We've already seen many ways in which AI has already been incorporated for years with ERP technology, such as MRP. It's an expert learning system. It learns from past production runs. And as advanced material requirements planning goes, it allows you then to run those production runs much faster because it's learning over time. AP automation, another great example, incorporating optical resolution scanning, right? So that it can incorporate that information, feed it into ERP, automating these systems. But with generative AI, this is where it gets exciting. This is where we can really start to push the bounds and create new customer value we've never seen before. An example, really easy one, would be incorporating generative AI into a learning assistant. So you could apply the generative AI to your learning library. This is something that Epicor is doing. And you could just ask very simple questions, especially if you're a new user of the ERP, right? You could say, how do I create a part? How do I do an order entry? And it will respond in very natural language ways. So just, again, beginning to scratch the surface at so many really exciting ways we can incorporate ERP or AI into ERP, which are the screens that your users are comfortable and already familiar with every day.
It's the back office transactional data that feeds into AI as well, which makes the AI models learn better and work better in that regard. I'm here with a super interesting panel discussion of 6 different software vendors talking about how AI is affecting ERP software now and in the future. Got a lot more questions for this group, so be sure to stick around. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control. I recently published my first book. It's called The Final Countdown, Strategies to Reach the Third Stage of Digital Transformation. And I wrote this book because I really wanted to find a concise way to share some of my knowledge around digital strategy and how to get started on a digital transformation journey. So in this book, I cover 3 different sections. I cover the people, process, and technology aspects of transformation, with the idea that it's meant to be a starting point, a launching pad for organizations and team members that are going through digital transformations. So I encourage you to buy this book. You can get it electronically, you can get it paperback, or you can get it in hard copy, as I'm holding here in front of you. You can get it by going to thefinalcountdown.com. You can also search for it on Amazon if you shop at Amazon. Otherwise, just go to thefinalcountdown.com. Love to hear your feedback on this book as well. So I hope you check it out and hope you enjoy.
I'm excited to share our newly released 2024 Digital Enterprise Operations Report. This free download is available on the Third Stage website at thirdstage-consulting.com. This report is truly packed full of technology-independent and agnostic insights for your project to ensure that you're strategically optimized for success. Download your copy today with the QR code in front of me or visit our website for more details.
These things take time, mom and dad, they have a good life. But what am I gonna do with mine?
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 168. My name is Eric Kimberling with Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. The show is sponsored by Major Tom Productions. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. You can also go to transformationgroundcontrol.com to see all the past episodes that you might have missed. So be sure to check out anything you may have missed there too. All 167 episodes, in fact, you can find at that website. So be sure to check it out there. I've got a panel discussion here where we're having a really good discussion, awesome discussion with 6 different software vendors talking about how these different vendors are using AI and how their customers are adopting AI within their ERP systems. So Ranga from Oracle NetSuite, what are your thoughts on this whole topic?
Yeah, thanks, Eric, and thanks for it's great to be on this panel with a great set of rivals, as you put it. Ranga Bodla, I run field engagement and marketing for Oracle NetSuite, actually a 14-year veteran of NetSuite. So about 7 years prior to the acquisition by Oracle, and then 7 years after that. If you're not familiar with NetSuite, our big thing has always been we were the first really provider to market in 1998, and 25 years later we're still operating as really the leading cloud ERP provider with over 37,000 customers around the world, every size, industry, you name it, we're out there. Carrie, I really appreciated your comments about incorporating AI into the ERP, and I couldn't agree more. And it's really, I think, one of the biggest things that we think about as well. I mean, really, you think about the thing that feeds AI is you got to have good data. If you have crappy data, you're going to have crappy AI. And so, the best AI is going to come from the best data, and the best data is going to come from, a comprehensive ERP system that is leveraging that. The other piece that I think is really important, and Carrie talked a little bit about this, but I want to build on that, is we know that with ERP, the best thing is going to come is when more users are using it and you have that adoption. If it's a benefit to them as opposed to a hindrance, if they're using it in their everyday job, and that's really where I see AI really driving adoption of these systems. If people are using it, it's making their job better. It's enabling them to be happier, more productive. That's really where I see the practical implications. And that's why our strategy when we think about AI is everywhere. It's not an add-on. It's not it's not this bolt-on that you put onto the ERP system. It really has to be embedded into all the business processes that ERP can help support. And that's really where we think about it, and really what we're trying to drive. Whether you're talking about supply chain, whether you're talking about HR, whether it's these value streams about how you acquire and grow customers, or how you drive order to cash, and making sure the AI is incorporated in all of those elements. And that's a real big part of our roadmap and where we're going, and what we've already put in place, but then also where we see going. And to me, an ERP without AI is like a car without wheels, and that's really where we see this driving towards. And excited for the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, that's great sound feedback. How about you, Christian from TEC? And by the way, speaking of TEC, this QR code right here, right to the left of me, is where you can scan to learn more about this event coming up, the ESS event in Orlando. But Christian, what are your thoughts on this whole topic here?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, technology evaluation centers, we are an impartial advisory firm when it comes to enterprise software selection. So some of the views and points that we have isn't necessarily in regards to the software, but we have to consider from an organizational standpoint, what exactly are these practical implications? And just to build on what Raj was saying is that data is key. If organizations have a data centric approach, they're looking at the information, AI is only going to allow you to move that along and to increase your productivity and provide more intelligence and make it more actionable quicker. I'm sorry, it was Ranga that said that, not Raj.
That's okay.
Yeah, so just to sum it up, as Kerry as well mentioned, the ERP is the foundation of that. So with regards to implementing or considering an AI strategy, without the core ERP properly set up, without proper data, garbage in, garbage out, none of that will make sense. You know, we already are on that path. It's not a new topic. Hyper automation, business process has been around for ages, and even RPA. Once you've had all those steps, then I think AI is the next step. And in order to remain competitive, you got to consider it.
Right. Yeah, very much so. Yeah, this is really interesting, just seeing how the two technologies are coming together, the world of ERP, and how essential that is to leveraging AI the way its potential can enable. To what extent and what ways can AI enable ERP systems to increase productivity? And let's start with you, Rick.
Yeah, awesome. Rick from Infor. So not to be repetitive with some of the other companies here, obviously we're all covering similar areas, but Infor covers anywhere from industry specific, from healthcare to discrete manufacturing, process manufacturing, you name it. Covering both SMB with a pretty big presence there, as well as a pretty big presence in the enterprise space as well. Infor is maybe a little bit different in that our industry specificity was built from the ground up in the ERP engines themselves. So we have several that are purpose fit for that. We've got one centralized hub, though, in our cloud platform that ties them all together and creates what we call the cloud suite. And the reason I bring that up, that's the main area of coverage for me. So I run product management primarily on that main centralized cloud hub. So integration, data management, AI, our new generative AI offerings all kind of come there together because we're trying to abstract that level of innovation so that we can do it a little bit more quickly. So obviously, when we're talking about systems productivity, it's near and dear to my heart because it's something that we're always looking at. Because ERP, at the end of the day, it's a collection of business process, right? They're not necessarily all that different. Some can do them a little bit differently based on industry or micro verticals. But if you take something like order to cash, for instance, that all of us are familiar with, it's a subsequent steps of all these different things that if you're applying artificial intelligence, whether it be from an experience point of view, like Karen was talking about, or if it's back-end automation using AI and some sort of API flow behind the scenes, you're inherently speeding up that system. We used to talk about companies being able to pivot all the time, right? Whenever COVID happens, what happens? But we're going into this world of like self-adjusting and self-healing systems. So that sort of productivity is something that we're heavily investing in and we're seeing because we're lucky to be able to see it across multiple applications. But it also goes to the level of when you're building these types of things, whether it's a new in-context experience for sales recommendations or part recommendations or asset intelligence, whatever it might be. The ability to build those things, obviously we all know Gen AI is this huge game changer that you don't have to know code. You don't have to necessarily have as deep of a data science background because it's opening up the world to be able to create this sort of intelligent content so much faster that's getting injected directly back into the ERP experience, the end user experience, which at the end of the day means a better customer experience, which I believe we're probably going to get into. But yeah, it's an exciting space that I'm really excited for and happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very exciting. How about you, Raj? We haven't heard from you yet, but what are your thoughts on how AI is enabling productivity?
Yeah, no, thanks, Eric. Look, I think that the panelists here have captured a lot of these things, but I think there's one important dimension that we should think about when it comes to AI. And that is nothing to do with technology, but it is to do with generational knowledge transfer. What do I mean by that? Think about what's happening in the manufacturing sector today. By the way, I'm with Rootstock, and Rootstock is focused on the manufacturing sector, we're the number one ERP on the Salesforce platform, but the youngest of my siblings here on the call, right? So clearly that's where we're coming from. What we are looking at is an entire new generation is coming into the workplace right now. And manufacturing as a sector, is skewing demographically towards a lot of the knowledge and experience actually exiting the workforce very soon, right? I mean, we are looking at a lot of gray hair, more than mine, but they're already retiring right now. They're coming to that age. So what do we do, right, from an AI standpoint to make sure that this experience, which is so valuable, is not lost? So we're looking at AI as a way to capture the learnings from that, generation and transfer it seamlessly to the younger workforce that's coming in. And everything that we end up doing, whether it's predictive investment, generative investments, is a way to accomplish that. Essentially, think about this. It's the training wheels that we need to provide to help adopt it. And I believe it's incumbent on all of us here on this call to not to hype up this technology more, but to really look for practical usages, especially for conservative, risk-averse industries who are already sick and tired of the hype. They don't know what to do with it. I can't run my business on generative AI. I'm sorry, right? It's a portion of this problem that we have to solve. But I think we have over-indexed so much on the hype that we're forgetting what the practical reality is.
Yeah.
That's kind of my take on this.
That's really well said. I think that, just being more practical about it, what exactly is it to our organization? How are we going to use it? Even just educating, why is everything we do in the transactional side of things, why is that important to AI and how does that affect AI and that sort of thing? So you're right. There's a big human component that we've got to work on here rather than, I think we're getting past the hype now. Okay, we all get it. AI is a big deal. We're all excited about it. Now, what does it mean? I think that's where we're at right now is let's understand what it means. And I appreciate you guys are doing a nice job helping us understand that. And then last but not least, the last guest we haven't heard from yet is Jeff. So Jeff, I'll let you introduce yourself and answer that question too, if you don't mind.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me. So I'm representing SAP. I'm with Cognitus. We're one of the SAP Gold partners. SAP's run on a network of partners, thus me being one of those. So I've been doing the SAP implementations and different things for about 15 years. So I'm one of the managing directors at Cognitus. So today, really focused on, obviously love to be with the peers here, not enemies, frenemies. How about that? We all make each other better, Gen AI, et cetera. All these types of things we talk about is really fun. So and pertaining to the question, about the productivity boosts and things, with the recent implementations we're doing, you can't do it without AI. Any of the demos that we're giving, right, as this team on board here, if you don't use the word AI, you're not going forward, right? So I think about 20 to 40%, depending on the different area that you're talking about. So, like Rick even said, with the faster processing times, we see that across the board. Whether you're talking about efficiency or accuracy, that happens all over the place. One of the biggest ones we've seen, especially in the SAP space, people think of that as kind of a large ocean. I got to memorize these T codes and things like that. That's a thing of the past. You have these chat bots and different things. Even when you go to your bank, right? You log in, you get a chat bot that pops up. A lot of those are in our ERPs now. So when you go in, let's show me my open AR on this customer. You can do that really quickly. And that improves the speed of folks that don't log in every day, or shop floor users that want to see what warehouse tasks do I need to pick on my outbounds this morning. Things like that are really quick to their fingertips, right? On the scanners even. And also, just getting all of those decisions to their fingertips as far as predictive analytics, the data volume sets that come in from the customer demand and all those types of things. But that's kind of those practical examples that I like to think of, Raj, like you said, how can we be practical about it? How do we understand Gen AI and those types of things? Even OCR, that's always been around for 15, 20 years now, but the learning language models behind it, how do we actually understand those documents and make sure that we can make them better when the customers send those in on a quotation side or a vendor on the invoice side, whatever that looks like. So that'll be my take.
I'm here with a super interesting panel discussion of 6 different software vendors talking about how AI is affecting ERP software now and in the future. Got a lot more questions for this group, so be sure to stick around. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control.
If you are aiming for transformation success, turn to Third Stage Consulting Group. Third Stage's independent and technology-agnostic consulting team helps clients define their digital strategies, define their roadmaps, and manage their transformations. With offices in the US, Europe, and Australia, our team helps the world's most forward-thinking organizations through their transformation pitfalls and risks. If you are embarking on a digital transformation or business change initiative, contact Third Stage Consulting to see how we can help you reach the third stage of transformation success. Learn more about us and download independent reports, videos, and other best practices at thirdstage-consulting.com.
Are you looking for ways to promote your product or service to enterprise technology decision makers and influencers throughout the world, like the ones who listen to this podcast? Major Tom Productions creates media, events, and influencer marketing for B2B technology providers. Our productions are exciting, educational, disruptive, and effective. Most importantly, they create results. Our content is unlike any other in this industry, engaging, influential, and trusted by technology buyers and influencers throughout the world. Each month, our productions reach hundreds of thousands of targeted buyers and decision makers who trust and engage with our honest and tech-agnostic content. With long-tail viral results and engagement with our content, Major Tom Productions provides a way to reach your target market and create awareness, calls to action, and a connection with potential customers. So collaborate with us today. Learn how we can feature your product or service on podcasts such as Transformation Ground Control, Journey to S/4HANA, and Journey to Dynamics 365. We can also feature your brand on our YouTube channel called Digital Transformation with Eric Kimberling, which boasts over 100,000 subscribers and over 2 million video views per year. You can also participate in our in-person events, including our Digital Stratosphere Conference. Contact us today to learn more. We can tailor a marketing campaign that works for you. We look forward to helping more people learn more about and become engaged with your brand.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 168. My name is Eric Kimberling with Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. The show is sponsored by Major Tom Productions. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. You can also go to transformationgroundcontrol.com to see all the past episodes that you might have missed. So be sure to check out anything you may have missed there too. All 167 episodes, in fact, you can find at that website. So be sure to check it out there. I've got a panel discussion here where we're having a really good discussion, awesome discussion with 6 different software vendors talking about how these different vendors are using AI and how their customers are adopting AI within their ERP systems. A lot of the fundamental foundational pieces of AI have been around for a while. It's just now that we're getting to it sort of in the enterprise space and trying to figure out how to bring it all together. And I love this whole conversation around how AI is a great tool, but it's only as powerful as we make it within our organizations and as powerful as we allow our people to use it. And so a lot of that's going to be defining for people. How are we going to use AI? What does it mean to this organization? And what's that process going to look like? And I'd say there's a heavy component of organizational change management to organizational design and really just helping define those detailed processes and how AI is going to be leveraged. Because it's not just going to do your job for you. It could do a lot of your job for you if you instruct it and if you do it right. But there's a lot of human interaction that has to go there. Last but not least, I'm going to introduce myself. I don't think I ever did. Eric Kimberling. I'm with Third Stage Consulting, and we're an independent consulting company that is not affiliated with any of these software vendors here today or any other software vendors for that matter. And we help clients with digital strategy, software selection, and implementation support as well. So that's who I am, and thank you for allowing me to facilitate here today. And speaking of that, just a couple audience comments and questions here. This is from Ermin on LinkedIn. He says, thank you, Eric, for bringing all these industry leaders. Just to clarify, I did not bring these industry leaders together. It was actually TEC. It was Christian and his team at TEC that brought them all together. I'm just here. I'm just the face, the talent, or whatever you want to call it. So thanks. It's really Christian that brought it all together here. So thank you, TEC, for that. Curious, this is off script here. I just want to ask this question because it's a question I get a lot, and I think it's especially for those younger people earlier in their career that are listening right now. This is from Eamon from YouTube. Eamon says, what would be better to pursue in a career, AI or data science? I'm just going to open up to the floor here. Anyone that wants to answer that question, I'll open it to you guys.
I'll just throw out an answer here. I think right now, data science, honestly, because it's you gotta have a foundation. Here's the thing. I don't think any of us on this stream can say where AI is going to be in even 6 months. Like we have our predictions. We know that it's moving really quickly and it's going to only continue to rapidly iterate. But the thing about data science is it's a really good foundation that's going to help you in terms of AI. So I always say, particularly when talking to like finance individuals too, data science, statistics, some of these things that are like the baseline part of this, I think provide a really good foundation. So that's my opinion. And, I think, there's lots of things you gotta make sure you educate yourself on AI. Everybody in the industry does. But as far as a career goes, I think getting that foundation data science is going to only help. That's my perspective.
I'll provide another view of that. It kind of depends on the field in which you want to pursue a career. So I would imagine a data science career is going to be more along the lines of building with the data science, helping the C-suite navigate data science types of decisions. If you pursue a career in AI, I'm in product management and I get to build with AI and chart the strategy for AI and think through solving really tough customer problems, and then work with data scientists and those who have specialized in AI, to bring that to life as a solution for an organization to solve their problems. You could also, I'm sure, pursue a career of marketing, being able to translate, to normal language, what it means to work with AI and to build with AI and the value that it can create. So my recommendation would be to think through the field in which you want to pursue, and then that might help you decide AI or data science.
Just to add to what Kerry said, right? The choice is, do you want to buy or sell the cake, or do you want to be a baker? That's the choice. They both are related to each other.
I like the way you put that better, though.
Yeah, that is well said. Very well said. And I appreciate you guys saying this too, because I have a son who's looking at colleges, and I've been trying to convince him that he should major or minor in data science. He wants to do business, and he's like, yeah, I'm not a computer guy. And I said, yeah, you don't have to be, it doesn't matter. You need data science is a great skill to have no matter what field you go into. So totally agree with you guys. I think that's a good feedback.
And
there.
as far as I see it, there are different skills to be a data scientist or an AI architect solution. And of course, because most of us are coming from the product or from the marketing, so we will probably be more with AI or any other architecture solution, and not by the data scientist, which is more R&D technology part.
Right. Now here's the first bit of AI humor that we're getting here today. This is from Patricia on LinkedIn. She says, woman on the phone says, my husband accidentally swallowed an aspirin. What should I do now? Give him a headache, says the doctor. So her question here, which sort of leads into her question here, which is how do you avoid unnecessary AI solutions? I guess that's maybe more of a general question, is like, how much of this that you guys are seeing so far, how much of it is, call it necessary or, really valuable versus something that's more pie in the sky, nice to have sort of thing. I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this, because I think we're sort of dancing around that exact question.
I think it's a little bit different in the enterprise software space than what we see in like even some of these examples, which are hilarious. But the use of filters, and you talk to AWS or any other Google vendor out there, Azure, and they tell you leave it open to different types of models for different scenarios. So I think we're anticipating that we're going to know the exact way to take all this stuff out. The more that you can make it personalized, that comes with a certain cost model, right? But the more that you can apply filters to make sure that you're filtering out all that noise and getting to the right answer, the better. But I can understand the question, but you've got to be a little bit more careful, obviously, in the enterprise space than just going out into hitting the open market.
Right. Yeah. And just some other comments from the audience. William on YouTube says, my wife has her PhD in what is essentially data science. The opportunities are many. And this is from Syed from YouTube. Is AI is to help ERP bring data, document communication, and knowledge in a single database so customers can get actionable data. And I assume he means employees can get actionable data as well. So great stuff there. This is I'm just getting to some of these really interesting comments from the audience too, because I think this adds some color to what we're chatting about here. But this is from Shmuel on LinkedIn. Shmuel says AI should assist the CEO in understanding how the organization is running, highlighting the major problems such as cash flow issues, etc. Now the CEO is not using the ERP system, but if you will, the entire organization will use it too. So that's a really interesting point. If you can get the executive team on board with the benefits and the value of AI, and they actually start relying more on their ERP system rather than just relying on a report that someone manipulated out of Excel or whatever. I think that's a great opportunity for people to really embrace it. And sort of speaking of that, along those same lines, I want to come to you here, Renga, as far as how can ERP systems help reduce operating costs? Have you seen that? It's sort of similar to the previous questions around increasing productivity, but here we're talking about operating costs. Do you think there's an opportunity for AI to do that within the world of ERP?
I definitely think so. And I think your point or comment just about the CEO side is, that commentary about adoption. If the executives are using it, then that just means more folks are going to be using it. And then, then you're not splintering and putting things elsewhere or creating data silos. But I think there are a number of different areas where I do think it can help drive an improvement in operating costs. And I think some of it is just automation. Again, we've always said with ERP, there's always an opportunity to do automation, and AI just furthers that in my perspective. Automating of routine tasks, getting better inventory management. I think actually, I can't remember who one of the other panelists actually made some other comments about on the manufacturing side. There's things on procurement, but I do think that right now in particular, we are in a talent shortage. And, one of the things that, that people are being asked to do more and more. And one of the ways in which, instead of having to go and hire, or you can't necessarily find those hires, you can drive that out of, the increased usage of the system. And so I think that's one of the areas where you can actually reduce costs, by taking some of that automation on.
Just to add to what Ranga said here, Eric, right? We're in the middle of a fantastic technology sandwich, right? Let me explain what I mean by that. It's all food related stuff now. There's disruptions that we thought that AI is going to do on the low end of the market. Mainly, we think about from the world of automation, we thought, repetitive tasks and things like that is the first thing that AI is going to come for. But not only did that not happen, AI actually went on the high end, right? So this is about conceptualization. Think about what generative AI can do, right? Which is about writing stuff trained in the corpus of whatever is available in the World Wide Web. So you're getting this fantastic squeeze of AI on the high end, right? Where copywriters are losing their jobs right now. It's like, why would you go for a copywriter right now? It's been insane, right? For those of you guys who are seeing this. And then on the low end, you have robotics that's taking over all the automation bit. So it's kind of an interesting shift that's happening in the market with this technology sandwich on how will our customers adopt to this new world where the classical model of how you think about technology, maturity, growth, and so on is no longer working. Now, not that I have answers for it, but I'd love to sort of get your take and the panelists' take as well on that.
I'm here with a super interesting panel discussion of 6 different software vendors talking about how AI is affecting ERP software now and in the future. Got a lot more questions for this group, so be sure to stick around. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control. My name is Eric Kimberling, and I'm the CEO and founder of Third Stage Consulting. Before we dive too far into today's content, I want to invite you to learn a little bit more about Third Stage Consulting, who we are and what we do. We help clients through their entire digital transformation life cycles, beginning with digital strategy, software evaluation and selection, all the way through and including implementation planning, implementation readiness, and the actual implementation itself. We're technology agnostic, so we only represent our clients' best interests. We do not represent software vendors. But having said that, we work very closely with software vendors, all the leading players that you can imagine we've worked with, both in helping clients evaluate and select them, but also in helping clients implement those solutions as well. So we have a very broad, objective, agnostic view of the market that is meant to really represent your interest as you go through your digital transformation. I also encourage you to scan this QR code right here to get access to our resource center. This resource center has a ton of information, a ton of ebooks that are free. You have access to top 10 software rankings, playbooks for how to make your project more successful, guides to change management, YouTube videos, all kinds of stuff that are going to help you through your digital transformation. So I encourage you to scan this QR code to get access to those resources. And please feel free to reach out to me directly to brainstorm ideas about your project. Even if it's just informally, you want to bounce around some ideas and get some informal advice, I'd be happy to spend some time with you. So feel free to reach out to me. I've included my contact information below. You can also find it in the description field of this video as well.
The last thing you want to have happen is for your digital transformation to end up in court. I've been doing this for 20 years and I have seen everything. My name is Marcus Harris. I'm a software and technology attorney focusing my practice on drafting and negotiating software-related contracts and litigating software disputes across the country. Feel free to reach out to us at taftlaw.com. We'd love to talk to you about the litigation process and what you can expect.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 168. My name is Eric Kimberling with Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. This show is sponsored by Major Tom Productions. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. You can also go to transformationgroundcontrol.com to see all the past episodes that you might have missed. So be sure to check out anything you may have missed there too. All 167 episodes, in fact, you can find at that website. So be sure to check it out there. I've got a panel discussion here where we're having a really good discussion, awesome discussion with 6 different software vendors talking about how these different vendors are using AI and how their customers are adopting AI within their ERP systems.
You know, one of the things I think is really compelling is that all of us right now are in this moment where we get to decide the future of AI in our industries and our technologies. And it's really important that, you know, so that we're not using AI for AI's sake, but using it to create real customer value, that we all lean in and participate and identify those areas where there's a responsible use of AI to lower operational costs, to increase cost savings, to reduce carbon emissions. Like, there are some really tough problems of our time, talent shortage, but with the use of AI, we can really tackle them head on in ways that we've never been able to do before.
Yeah, and to build on that a little bit, because I completely agree with Carrie, and to the previous question, yes, there's always going to be this sort of like squeeze of cost, and automation and AI enhancing that is always going to be there. How can I make this process run more efficiently, faster? And for instance, like we've got some examples of like service job costs going down because we can do in context product recommendation for first time fixes. And there's been 30% decrease in costs for customers for that. But at the same time, we've seen actually and arguably a whole lot more of new opportunities develop in business models as opposed to the cost constraint. So we're starting to see that shift in a lot of our customer base to say, yes, it is about cost constraint, but once we see the benefit, oh, wow, there's all these other markets that we can go after and all these other opportunities. And heck, it might increase our costs a little bit. That's okay, because our margin's fantastic.
Right. Yeah, it makes total sense. And Carrie, I want to come back to you too for a second, just to build on what Rango was talking about a moment ago about reducing operating costs. You know, how in addition to solving some of the world's problems or things we've never thought about before that you just mentioned, you know, how can AI help companies reduce operating costs? How do you see that unpacking?
Yeah, I do think one of the key ways is through user productivity gains. One of the ways in which we see it playing out within the Epicor ERP solutions is using AI to build configurations, right? So when you get the ERP, you have a unique business, everybody does, and you need to tweak it. And you can now use generative AI. You could say things like, you know, I need to generate a report that highlights this in red and highlights this in yellow. And maybe you don't know how to code that, but you can use the generative AI to create that report, and it appears the way that you need it to, and it can send it to the users, and now they're able to access that information and now do their job much faster, right? So there are little ways that as we're incorporating generative AI into our systems, we're creating those user productivities that then, generate excellent operational cost savings.
Yeah, great point. How about you, Karen? What are your thoughts on this operating cost reduction opportunity within AI?
So I will take you to the supply chain management or to the logistic heavy processes, because I think that this is one of the places that we see a huge adoption of AI capabilities. Regarding the question we just had before, is that AI that we are pushing or solving a real problems that we are pushing? So when we are getting to awareness, first of all the idea that we can predict the real demand of our products, and then we can plan our inventory level based on additional things, not only the traditional MRP or traditional planning of ERP or business application, because now we can take into consideration market trend and historical data and seasonality, and maybe other things with our customers' behavior, taking all of that into consider, and then we have like more accurate product demands and inventory level. We should not be in the same overstock or understock that we used to be before the AI period. And it's not only that. Let's imagine how we should do the picking, routing in the warehouse when we want to fulfill an order. Even there, when we can do optimization with AI capabilities, how to load the track. I can give you a lot of example. The pick by voice, it's another AI capability based on automation or generative AI. We mentioned that as well. But we want the warehouse employee to have its hands-free, so we will be able to collect packages or whatever. And we want him to talk to the application with his voice, and the application to understand and to proactively guide him how to fulfill his order in the best way. And we can move forward to the routing efficiency of the track and distribution, and the fact that we can navigate in real time based on the traffic and based on the weather and so on and on. So when it comes to heavy logistic processes and supply chain management, we have so many practical, real problems that can be solved or better solved by AI capabilities.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to jump to you for a second, Rick, and ask you a question here around, and I'm asking a couple of you the same question, but can you give a specific example of how some of your ERP customers are using AI and what the benefits for them have been? Like just those real life use cases of not just pie in the sky stuff that could happen, but these are actually situations where your clients or your customers are actually using AI?
Yeah, absolutely. I mentioned one a little bit earlier. I jumped the gun a little bit, I think, but for service jobs, right? We have customers that are using in context insights to say, hey, for this particular customer, for this reason, or this vendor, so it's upstream and downstream both ways. What's the scenario that's best adjusted for this? So it's not just like parts recommendations, but it's pricing intelligence. But what's interesting about that is it puts customers on a life cycle to say, hey, maybe I don't trust this. Maybe that insight, that tribal knowledge that I do have, I think there was a comment about this earlier, it puts them on a journey to say, okay, now I'm starting to trust it more and more and more because the data is getting better and better and better. So we have customers doing that. We've got customers doing asset intelligence for uptime, but then passing those savings down to their various customers. We've got track and trace resolution for customers on the supply chain. So for instance, if we've got something bad going on in ingredients, but it doesn't happen until downstream, understanding that faster through AI predictions and different levels throughout the process, being able to get to that customer resolution, but to also stop production upstream so that we minimize that sort of problem. So all these are in the area that we're currently seeing in production today.
Yeah, that's great. How about you, Raj? What are some examples of how your customers are seeing AI actually deliver benefits to their organizations now?
I'll give you one real great story that we just saw a couple of weeks ago at our conference called Rooted In. So one of our customers, I'd say he because it was the president of the company, and I listened to him speak on that. He's the owner and founder of a textile startup. So they make essentially uniforms and things like that for folks that you can order. So one of the things that he was struggling with is, this concept of product configurator, right? We've all seen this, right? It's the ability for someone to come in and configure exactly the right style, the right color. And there's so many combinatorial sort of patterns that emerge, right, in terms of making an order. And so they had a product configurator, but it turns out that product configurator, where it's great technology solution, it's really shitty from a customer experience perspective, because if you can't visualize what you're ordering, you really don't know how to buy it. So he did something absolutely amazing. He was able to take generative AI and essentially create every possible combination of how these things coming in using Rootstock ERP as a constraint engine. So that way, you don't end up creating a product or hallucinating a product that doesn't exist and that cannot be made and cannot be built. But putting these two things together of generative AI, creating a catalog, and really converting it to a bit of an e-commerce sort of operation, if you will, right? So you really went from a custom sort of ETO kind of operation to an e-commerce like operation, and triple sales over 3 years, tripled it. It's just fantastic. So to me, that's what gives me, the hope and excitement of what we're doing with AI is like, look, it's got to be founded and grounded in some level of reality. The last thing I will say is let's avoid the Cisco problem. What do I mean by that? Cisco a few years ago jumped on the IoT bandwagon. We saw this, right? This happened like 10 years ago. They ended up redefining every single piece of technology out there, including the internet, and called it IoT. We have to stop not doing the same hype. We cannot fall into the same trap to say, let's take every form of automation there is, every use case in ERP that exists, and let's call it AI. Let's not do that. Let's focus on real incremental value, because this is exactly what's going to happen with IoT. It's going to go up like this, and it's going to die a quick death because all of our customers are going to look at us and say, this is bullshit. This thing has happened before. You guys are saying the same thing, putting old wine in a new bottle. So we just have to be aware and conscious of what we talk about.
It's a great point. We want this to become more than just another buzzword that we throw in there, like IoT, Industry 4.0, art of possible, whatever. Pick a buzzword or a phrase. And AI, I think what we're saying is it's not another buzzword. There's actual benefits and value here. We just have to figure out, as technologists and also as organizations deploying these technologies, we have to figure out how we're going to best leverage that technology that makes sense for us. I'm here with a super interesting panel discussion of 6 different software vendors talking about how AI is affecting ERP software now and in the future. Got a lot more questions for this group, so be sure to stick around. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control. People oftentimes ask me how I built such a strong social media following on YouTube and LinkedIn and Facebook and other outlets. And the fact of the matter is it took me a long time to build a following through a lot of trial and error, making a lot of mistakes. Had I known that there were companies out there that could help me build my brand, I would have done that a long time ago. I didn't know that, but the good news is that there is today a consulting firm that will help you through building your own personal brand through some of their training programs. The company is called Roloff Consulting, and if you're familiar with Emma Roloff, she's someone that I've had on this podcast before, and she's well known in the digital transformation space as well as the sales space, and she's big on TikTok, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And she and her husband have started a training course and a training company that focuses on helping people build their personal brands and helping them to sell themselves digitally. So whether you're a salesperson that's trying to reach more customers or you're an individual that's just trying to build your personal brand, that's something that they help with through their training programs. And they've offered listeners of this podcast a free 5-day LinkedIn challenge. And I encourage you to check it out. I've included a link below for this podcast. If you go to the podcast notes, you'll find a link that gets you free access to this 5-day challenge where you'll get step-by-step guidance. You'll get real results. So you'll get some tangible results from the program. And you also get a special offer at the end of it. So it's exclusive to listeners of this podcast. Be sure to check out the link below if you want to work on building your personal brand, or if you're in sales and you're trying to reach more people. Whatever the case may be, check it out. It's free to listeners of this podcast. You can check it out via the link below.
Interested in working for a company that truly values your unique skills and experience? Here at Third Stage, we don't hire based on resumes alone. We look at the full candidate, experience, and willingness to provide excellent service for our clients. Within a technology, independent, and agnostic consulting firm, you have the opportunity to learn across industries with a diverse group of clients. Our consultants also have the opportunity to diversify their portfolio and learn across technology systems. If you're interested in joining a high-growth entrepreneurial organization, please reach out to us at work@thirdstage-consulting.com.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 168. My name is Eric Kimberling with Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients throughout the world with their digital transformation journeys. The show is sponsored by Major Tom Productions. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. You can also go to transformationgroundcontrol.com to see all the past episodes that you might have missed. So be sure to check out anything you may have missed there too. All 167 episodes, in fact, you can find at that website. So be sure to check it out there. I've got a panel discussion here where we're having a really good discussion, awesome discussion with 6 different software vendors talking about how these different vendors are using AI and how their customers are adopting AI within their ERP systems. In the SAP world, how are you seeing? What are a couple examples where you're seeing customers use S/4HANA to deliver value in the AI front?
Yeah, so, and it's funny, Raj, you mentioned IoT, so we pretty much scrapped that term from our landscapes in terminology. So one thing that, one of our recent customers, I do a lot of the asset-heavy industries for us at Cognitus. So, something that's also more beneficial for customers is the cost point or price point. So with Amazon, you can use something called Monitron for all the machine sensors and things like that. So across the plant floor, the sensors and all of that's feeding that back into S4 SAP. So what we did there with the AI was hooking all of that up for the predictive analytics or predictive maintenance. And Rick, you did allude to this a little bit, but pushing that back into kind of the demand side to say, okay, if you have these breakdowns, how's it actually going to affect your demand? So kind of the uptime, downtime stream within that. So a real life example with that customer. But expanding on that a little bit, we have a lot of kind of field service management customers. We have assets in the field. So we also have them investing more in these sensors where they can actually hook into the satellites and things and be remote. So what AI does is pick all that up and make it more predictive maintenance. So when those machines are failing, the vibrations get too high, whatever the calibrations need to be within the different sense or within the different monitoring. So those are feeding back into their systems and also back into SAP so that different notifications are being created. They have like a ServiceNow, let's say, a portal, or even any SAP system, doesn't matter what it is. It's really system agnostic. Then those tickets get sent down into SAP. We start building all of that data up. It gets sent back out to them because it could be certain warranties need to be evaluated. You want to make sure that, your cost savings, you're not just fixing things for the sake of fixing things, and you're increasing your equipment lifespan, things like that, because these asset heavy industries, that's where your main cost is. You also want to make your customers happy. That's the end of the day, your revenue streams and all of that. So that's a very specific use case that we really started honing in on more and more recently, because it's funny, Raj mentioned the IoT. That wasn't really necessarily really ready for prime time when that came out, but now it is. So that's been in reality recently.
Yeah, and it's I think what you're saying, Jeff, and just hearing these examples from the rest of the panelists too, is there's just so many different ways we can use AI. I think, again, we've got there's a focus issue here. We've got to say, where, in your example, Jeff, if it's a shop floor and that's where we need to look at maintenance or repair of equipment or whatever it is, or of shop floor machinery, that's great. I mean, we just need to define where we think the most value is within our organization. And I want to actually pull up a comment that's really, I think, kind of highlights this point a bit. This is from Billy Jeans on YouTube. I don't know if that's a Michael Jackson reference or if it's a jean company. Either way, if that's a jean company, that's a great name, by the way. But I don't know what Billy Jeans is, but now I need to go look that up. Anyway, Billy Jeans on YouTube says, is there a software system that automatically sends emails to buyers when orders are unconfirmed? That's literally all I need to fix my problems. And I don't know that we need to answer that necessarily. I think we can safely say that yes, there probably are ways you could do that with AI and other automation tools. But the reason I pull it up is not necessarily to answer this question, which I think is yes, there are ways to do that. But I think this is interesting because it sort of brings it back to this human dimension that I think Raj and others had referred to before, which is, there's opportunities out throughout your organization. There's probably a million of them, of opportunities like this exact one right here. This is a micro example of how we might be able to use AI and other forms of automation to improve our business. And I think that's a part of kind of looking at what you've got today and how you can improve your technologies and potentially use AI to tackle some of these challenges. And if you can make one person's job this much easier, according to what Billy Jeans is saying, imagine if you could do that across your entire enterprise and all these that are there. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to do sort of a lightning round here. And ask each of the people to comment here on, in the next 2 to 3 years, what will your company focus on in terms of incorporating additional AI capabilities into your AI? And I'm just going to kind of go in order of how I see people. So why don't we start with you, Raj?
Oh, okay. So we're going to be looking at, helping our customers make better decisions, right? Leveraging with data that they currently have, which are unique data sets, not just about generative, which is more on the open web. So helping our customers make decisions that matter using AI that matters. That's what we're building.
Great. And then I'm going to ask you next, Jeff, why don't we go to you then?
Yeah, sure. So for our company, we are developing some products on the inbound side for sales contracts and things. But what I will say a major focus of ours right now is increasing the speed of implementation. So someone mentioned that earlier. It's not uncommon, but certainly, if you're putting data in these questionnaires, everyone wants to implement software faster and also realize the value much quicker, right? So predictive analytics will be there. Different things are going to be coming in. And a lot of that will be built within the software from different companies, different ways. But for us, a major focus is, hey, if you answer these 10 questions, we can speed up your implementation by, I'll just say 10% or whatever it is. And that's a big focus of ours. Make it more accurate as well.
Yeah. How about you, Carrie?
Yeah. First of all, Billy Jeans, I feel you. It's like, I feel like that came from a place of frustration. And that's exactly what we hope AI to be able to solve for, right? Those kinds of daily challenges that could be automated. And that's what we're going to be focusing on doing at Epicor. We're calling this cognitive ERP. And that is infusing AI and contextual intelligence throughout all of the operational workflows and connecting that data that is the backbone of your organization to others across the business so that you have a flow of data, a common thread, and a source of truth so that you can automate from system to system. And it can help you do that. It'll anticipate ways, and you shouldn't have to know what the prompts are. It'll serve up those insights and suggestions to you. Cognitive ERP is what we're calling that.
Cognitive ERP. That's very cool. How about you, Rick?
Yeah, so it's a little bit similar, and we call it the connected intelligence experience. There's been a lot of emphasis in what does it mean for the end users today. I think we read one comment about CEO dashboarding and whatnot. We're working on how do you bring that intelligence and create these advanced personas for those that may not be advanced in these technologies, right? They don't necessarily care where these answers are coming from. So when we talk about connected intelligence, it's a combination of how's my business process functioning, right? CEO really cares about that, or the COO really. We talk about the traditional analytics or BI, but at the same time, how do we make that more predictive and combine that into a user experience where they're not going around? It's completely changing how people view ERP, right? It's just a business process served up in an entirely different way. And if you think about how we've talked about business users and the evolving workforce, they don't view it the same way. So if we can serve it up to them and do things like business simulations and make their work more strategic and less tactical, it almost provides this sort of like gamification to it, doesn't it? Like to where if I can somehow impact the business, even though I don't know really how it's doing, but you're protecting the system with governance off of one platform, that's really where we're focused.
Right. Yeah, great. How about you, Ranga, from Oracle NetSuite perspective? What are you guys doing with AI in the future?
I've said this a few times and I just will come back to it, which is I think the biggest thing is how do we continue to drive adoption? And so our focus is really this notion of AI everywhere. We think about AI across the suite and thinking about, as we think about the value streams of how people use our system, whether it's acquiring and growing customers, creating, delivering products and services, hiring and empower employees or optimizing cash and profits, thinking about AI in each of those use cases, and how do you then drive continued adoption? And again, it's not about yet another thing or another task I've got to go take on, but how do we make the job easier and also make and drive adoption and increase that within all of our users? So that's really going to be our focus and where we're going to be really driving over the next couple of years.
Great. And then how about you, Karen, from Priority Software? What's your perspective on the future of AI within Priority?
So currently in progress with our flexible agenda that we have in our platform is the fact that we're collaborating prediction capabilities into our analytics capabilities in the system in a way that someone just mentioned, which is like self-service, and the user will be able to take some prediction, and it can be a churn of customers or it can be inventory forecasting, and put it exactly as part of the reports that he built for himself in the system and not like an external AI machine. That's one thing. And of course, we're keep working on experience. So all the generative AI as part of the natural language processing. And we all know that it's going to that place that those machines will be able to understand not only the content, but also the context and the intent. And in this way, we can just chat or talk to our system. Those things are already exist. But what the AI is doing here is just proactively guide you to the business processes. And the last thing that we are currently working in, it's like collaboration of the two tracks that I've just mentioned. The fact that we are going to have like risk management dashboard where the AI is going to proactively assist users to have better decision processes by giving them insights that they could have find if they went to the analytics or issue any report. But now it's going to be in a push way, but it's not the only thing that AI is going to learn and to push to the users. It will always recommend what are the best actions that could be done, learning from the users and what they are usually do when they find that specific information in the system.
Right. Great. That's perfect. And I'm going to ask Christian one last question, and we may lose a couple panelists just because we're at the top of the hour, and I know there's people with hard stops. So if you see people disappear, we'll go for a couple minutes longer. But for those that do have to drop, if we do lose anyone here, thank you for this panel. This is an awesome panel. I love facilitating this group. My challenge to Christian is I'd say to Christian, let's do this again sometime because this is super fun. Sure. And love to have this group again because I think there's a lot of stuff we could spend hours on this. So I'm going to ask you a question. If we lose people, thank you to anyone we lose here right now. But Christian, just to sort of wrap things up, first of all, we talked about the ESS event, which you can register, learn more, scan this QR code right here before you drop off this live stream. Make sure you check it out. It's going to be a great event. I'll be speaking there. Everyone here on this panel will be there as well. So it should be a great event. It's one of the few events where you're going to get a cross technology view of the world. But I guess just to wrap things up, Christian, what do you see the future as AI? You know, you guys, both TEC and Third Stage, we work with a lot of different technologies, a lot of different customers throughout the world. What do you see as the future of AI? Where do you see it headed in ERP systems?
Definitely, and we've all brought it up. I think the success for AI is adoption. It has to be something that's not intrusive. It has to almost feel seamless with your workflow, with your actions, your day-to-day tasks. And one thing that people don't necessarily understand is that the engine that's running behind it, that's the secret. And what it produces as an end result, that's the benefit. So from what we've seen, and even on our side, when we go through selection projects, people ask, well, what's the benefit? What is the ROI? Just like when we saw the adoption to cloud 8 years ago, people were like, I don't know, my data, is it secure? Is it not? We are at the cusp, and we've all addressed it, that we are at a stage where we can say where it will go, but more importantly, how it will be adopted. From what we see, just like cloud adoption, it took maybe 5-6 years, and now it's a standard. AI being implemented will start now, but it'll probably get only fully adopted in the next 2-3 years. The topic is only starting, and it's up to us to answer those questions, support how the businesses are run, and definitely get people on board.
That was super interesting. That was the first time I've ever had a panel discussion with 6 different software vendors. It's really hard to get multiple software vendors in the room, let alone 6 of them. So it was great and really interesting to hear such a diverse group of people from different software companies, different backgrounds, different parts of the world. Great discussion. So I hope you found that as informative and enjoyable as I did. And while we're talking about software vendors, we thought we'd continue on this track since we just had 6 of these vendors on the show. What we're going to do after a quick break is I'm going to have some of the leaders from these and other software vendors that I've had the opportunity to interview over the last couple of years. I've created a compilation video of 5 of the software vendors where I've spoken with their executive team. In some cases, the CEO. In most cases, it was the CEO of each of these companies, actually. Netsuite, Epicor, Infor, Baan, and Odoo. So we're going to speak with each of those CEOs when we talk about our lessons from Tech Titans. As soon as we come back from a quick break, you're listening to Transformation Ground Control.
Could you whisper in my ear?
If you are aiming for transformation success, turn to Third Stage Consulting Group. Third Stage's independent and technology-agnostic consulting team helps clients define their digital strategies, define their roadmaps, and manage their transformations. With offices in the US, Europe, and Australia, our team helps the world's most forward-thinking organizations through their transformation pitfalls and risks. If you are embarking on a digital transformation or business change initiative, contact Third Stage Consulting to see how we can help you reach the third stage of transformation success. Learn more about us and download independent reports, videos, and other best practices at thirdstage-consulting.com.
Steve, we've chatted before, but remind me and our audience a little bit more about Epicor and where you're focused these days.
Hey, Eric, yep, good to talk to you, and thanks for asking. So Epicor, what we do is we make and sell cloud software for the global supply chain. And when I say that, when a customer purchases our software, we're committed to running their day-to-day business. And this would include everything from finance and procurement to production and sales. It's a responsibility we take very seriously, and it's something I believe we're very good at. We've got an employee base that has the deep expertise to understand their business and run their business. We also compete against 2 or 3 of the largest software companies in the world. So it's not good enough for our products to be good. They have to be consistently great, and that's a really important focus for me. So great products, deep industry expertise. We also focus on the essential workers that make those businesses run. We like to say Epicor's got you covered from the shop floor to the top floor. And when we say that, we really mean it. So that's Epicor.
Your annual Insights User Conference is just around the corner, the Epicor Insights Conference. What are you looking forward to there, and what could we expect to hear about at this conference?
The big thing for me is that we get a lot of what I would call quality time with our customers. And when I say quality time, I mean good old-fashioned, face-to-face, in the same place at the same time, experience with the customers where they tell you what they really think. And in the case of Epicor, we get a lot of great feedback around applications, features, technologies that they love. And in some cases, where we've fallen short. I can tell you that when I think about some of the big projects we've done in the last 7 years that have made the biggest impact on both improving the customer experience, this would include everything from Profit 21 and Eclipse, which are distribution products, to Kinetic, which is for manufacturing, to our catalog, which is for automobiles. The feedback that has come directly from our customers at the Insights Conference has had the biggest impact on me. And in many cases, it's resulted in the biggest budgetary decisions I've made to fund projects. So I really appreciate the direct feedback we get. It isn't always fun. It can be a little bumpy, but customers know what they want. And our customers are very deep into their industries. So it's a level of information and intelligence we couldn't get any other way. I always look forward to that. That's the highlight for me.
And I'll do anything you ever dreamed to be complete.
Welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 168. My name is Eric Kimberling, CEO of Third Stage Consulting, independent consulting firm that helps clients with digital transformations. We're the sponsor of this podcast, and this podcast is produced by Major Tom Productions. You can find new episodes and past episodes as well of this podcast by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. So I'm excited for this next segment. We're going to talk about lessons from tech titans. We're going to talk about, or actually play you clips of some of my interviews with CEOs of 5 different companies, 5 different software vendors in the enterprise technology space: NetSuite, Epicor, Infor, Baan, and Odoo. Now, there's one person missing from this list, and I talked about him earlier in this podcast episode. That's Larry Ellison. I'm trying very hard to get him on the show. It's a long shot, I fully realize, but I'm going to keep trying until it comes on the show, and I will find a way. Maybe someday I'll issue a bounty or something. Maybe that's what I should do. Issue a bounty to the listeners. Anyone that can help me get him on the show, I offer some sort of financial bounty to. Maybe I'll try that in the future, so stay tuned for that. But anyway, Larry Ellison will not be here, unfortunately. He's not responded to my request for interview, not surprisingly, but eventually, maybe he'll just get worn down, and his people will get so worn down from hearing from me that he'll eventually do it. But in the meantime, we've got 5 great CEOs here, the CEOs of NetSuite, Epicor, Infor, Baan, and Odoo. And I had a chance to meet with them. I've also met with other CEOs of other software vendors, but I sort of picked these as my favorite 5 so far, CEO interviews with different software vendors, just to pick their brains about how they got started and what they're doing with their software companies right now, what they see in the future, what some of the trends are, just getting different perspectives from sort of the top dogs at each of these organizations. And this is a video you can find on my YouTube channel. I thought I'd play it here for you on this podcast because I really enjoyed making this video over time, because it's a compilation of interviews over the course of 2 or 3 years. So really looking forward to playing this for you. This is lessons from tech titans and some of the interviews or clips of interviews that I've had with vendor CEOs. One of the first tech titans I want to share with you here today is Evan Goldberg, who's the founder and CEO of NetSuite. And if you're not familiar with NetSuite, they're a software as a service product that started in the late 90s. They've been acquired by Oracle, and they focus their ERP efforts primarily on the small and mid-market. Over the years, they've started off as an upstart and a startup like a lot of tech companies do, but since it's become a powerhouse in more recent years in terms of really dominating the small and mid-market for ERP systems. And a lot of NetSuite customers are moving off of QuickBooks or some other basic finance and accounting system, and they find NetSuite to be a more robust offering for their solutions. So I recently had a chance to meet Evan at SuiteWorld in Las Vegas, but I also had a chance after that to have him on my podcast to have a deep dive interview. So what I want to do today is share with you a clip of my interview with him on my podcast, and if you'd like to watch the full interview, I've included a link to that below, and you can go check out the full podcast episode with that. But let's roll the clip with Evan Goldberg, the CEO and founder of NetSuite. So you start the company in 98, cloud-based solution. You're working with Larry Ellison. You called it NetLedger at first. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was sort of a failure of vision, I would say. I mean, because that was our first product, and it very well described exactly what the initial customers were getting. But we snapped out of it once we started building the other capabilities like CRM and e-commerce. We're like, oh yeah, this is a lot more than NetLedger. So then we called the product NetSuite, kept the company name NetLedger. Then we got a new CEO. I moved into the chairman role and the chief technology officer role. And Zach Nelson, who was our longtime CEO over most of the history of the company, was immediately like, well, we need to call the company NetSuite. That's really what we do. And so we changed the name, and it stuck.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, it does have a better ring, and it's more descriptive of what you guys do as well. So that was a good move. So Larry Ellison has a vision for the cloud. He obviously helped finance the company. Was he at all involved in the in the management or the creation of the product or anything like that?
Well, okay, so certainly from a high level strategy perspective, he was involved, and I would meet with him and talk to him frequently. But the one time that he really dived into the product itself, probably about 2.5 years in, we announced a feature called the Executive Dashboard. And that was really my sort of dream feature. That was sort of really, for me at that time, the culmination of my vision, which was sort of one place, a page. You log into NetSuite, and it would give you your key information that you needed to know, the key things that you needed to do. again, all in one place. So we announced this feature called the executive dashboard. And of course, every time we did any kind of announcement to the press, we were very good about including Larry Ellison's name in the information, which would help it get picked up. And so, so there's probably some article written and maybe his Google alert for stories that say Larry Ellison. I seriously doubt he has that. But in fact, I'm quite sure he doesn't. But somehow he got wind of this and he called me and he said, "Oh, you have this dashboard now. Okay, well, now I want to log in to NetSuite's account. And I'm going to actually use it." And so over the subsequent 2 months, so not only could he see how we were using his money, but he could also look at the dashboard. And so he basically became the product manager of the dashboard at that point. And he would call me every couple of days and say, "Here's what you need to do. You need to add this drop down that will allow you to change the periods of comparison on everything on the dashboard. You need to add this new chart that shows your performance in sales this month versus any previous similar time period." So I would dutifully, program that, or one of my team would, and then I'd call them and say, "Okay, try it now." It was much easier to release software back then.
Right.
And, that was a really fun time because we were really collaborating, at a deep kind of product level rather than just at the strategy level. And some of the things that he had us do survived to NetSuite to this very day, 20 plus years later.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, just put it in context for those that maybe weren't around in the late 90s when this was all happening.
Wait, were people that weren't around?
Yeah.
I constantly talk to the employees at NetSuite and I'm like, this was before you were born. Or you were you were two at the time. You were probably playing with Beanie Babies at the time that this happened.
Right, exactly. And you were starting a software company while they were playing with Beanie Babies.
Exactly.
But if you put it in context, though, it sounds so simple now. Like, okay, big deal, executive dashboard. But that just was not even close to being a thing back in '98. I mean, back in '98, you had, in addition to Beanie Babies and the Macarena and all this pop culture stuff we just talked about, you also had green screens. That was still kind of the primary user interface. Was I had a green screen. I'd enter some sort of memorized transaction code. It wasn't even a GUI or a graphical user interface oftentimes. So these companies are using these really outdated systems. At least some of the bigger ones were. QuickBooks maybe wasn't so cumbersome, but point being that the executive dashboard is one page sort of thing that just wasn't a thing. And you guys created that, which is pretty cool back then.
Right. No, it was neat. And it was really, again, the culmination of a lot of work to allow you to do all these different functionalities, all these different capabilities, manage all these capabilities in your business that normally were disconnected and weren't tied together, like your sales process and your financial processes, and if you did e-commerce and your people processes, et cetera.
Right. I'm fascinated by the fact that you guys create this cloud solution. Remember the whole ASP movement, the application service provider movement. It sort of got a lot of hype.
Sometimes that would include us, but sometimes it was more like just running an on-premise application in a data center and giving you sort of remote access to that application, which was obviously different than what we were doing, which was sort of pure cloud.
Yeah. And that's where I was going with it. I remember that ASP model getting a bit of hype from analysts, and it seemed like, that might get some traction and take off. And it never really did, at least not in the early 2000s, whenever that was. How did you guys, you were built in the cloud, you stuck with the cloud, you never went on premise, you never, did you ever, I guess my question is, did you ever look at this ASP movement that sort of came and went, and on premise just stuck around for a long time, and in some pockets of the industry still is sticking around? But did you ever question the cloud, or was it ever frustrating that the cloud didn't take off sooner? Or like, how did you guys persevere?
Yeah, it was definitely frustrating. The way I remember it, we'd have to go to relatively conservative parts of the business because we were starting with the financials. And so we were talking to controllers and CFOs of fast growing companies, and they were maybe the most risk averse. And so convincing them to try this new thing and put their data on the internet could be a challenge. Now, typically what I'd do is I'd say, well, where's your data now? And they'd say, oh, it's in this computer over there in our closet. with the coffee stain on it. And I'm like, you're not concerned that someone could steal that computer? It seems like it's not very secure. We keep our computers in this, modern data center where you need a handprint to get in. So that was step one. But often, we definitely rode the coattails of the Salesforce.com hype machine. And so, of course, many of these companies were also using Salesforce.com. And I say to the CFO, that your entire customer list and prospect list is already on the internet, and you're really worried that they want your income statement. So,
right.
It certainly did help that the Mark and his marketing prowess was telling the world that you didn't need software. He called it no software, which we would laugh about a little bit behind the scenes, because we'd be like, well, feels like we're developing software, but apparently not. But that was, in effect, one of those effective, not completely accurate slogans, but that captured people's attention and got people to think about, maybe I don't want to manage software, and maybe I want someone else to do it for me. Maybe this stuff really should be a service. I mean, one of the most revolutionary things about the whole cloud movement for business software is, and we realized it very early on, just months into the company, we were months into our product. Our first product was released less than a year from when we started the company. And a few months later, we're upgrading customers to the next version, and there's some problems with the upgrade, and we're having like the typical problems that a customer normally had to have. And that's when it occurred to us, oh, we're delivering a service. Like they need us to be doing this all the time, 24/7. Customers would come in with problems with their e-commerce site on like Christmas Eve, and we had to fix them because we were a service. We weren't just writing software and throwing it over the wall and daring them to install it and run it. So in that sense, Mark's slogan was right. It was no longer software, it was a service, and thus the name Software as a Service.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that's a big cultural shift, I imagine, too, for a bunch of techies and developers.
Absolutely.
And people that are used to creating software, not a service.
Well, and fortunately, we got over that quite quickly, and there were only a few of us. So changing the culture from a product to a service was quite easy, and then has sort of imbued, our DNA ever since then.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting now because, I always mention this to potential buyers of enterprise tech, especially ones that are enamored by the cloud or SaaS solutions, and they might be looking at, SAP or Microsoft Dynamics or whatever, in addition to potentially NetSuite. And it's always, you always have to say, look at how the software is built. Are you really getting a cloud solution with many of your competitors, with a lot of the ERP vendors out there? Are you really getting a cloud solution, or are you getting an on-premise system that they're trying to move to the cloud as we speak, and they're selling it as a cloud solution? Whereas with NetSuite, you know what you're getting. For better or for worse, you know exactly what you're getting with NetSuite. It was built in the cloud. It's not, you're not trying to make that transition now like a lot of software vendors are.
That's true. And users won't necessarily see it superficially because they're using it in a browser and they're like, oh, this is a cloud solution. But when you sort of, build a cloud solution with, shoestring and bubble gum, and really under the covers, it was architected to be on premise, what you end up with is, for example, people on many different versions. And what that means is that just stifles innovation. Obviously, you don't get access to the latest capabilities until you're willing to, upgrade. And so that, the speed of upgrades, the speed with which we can make sure that everybody gets all the innovation that we're doing is due to the fact that we really have truly we're running one system in the cloud. We're not running a bunch of different versions. We're not running a bunch of different things for different customers. So on the surface, you might not see these differences between the architecture on the surface, but you'll see them ultimately in your experience of using these different products.
So that's just a partial clip of Evan talking about his history and background and the evolution of NetSuite. The reason I like talking to Evan so much is not only is he a great guy to converse with and a smart guy, but also because it's fascinating to me how he and Larry Ellison knew back in 1998 that cloud systems would one day take over the world. And they bet heavily on that, and it turns out they were right. So it's really interesting to hear how 25 years ago, before cloud systems even had a name, NetSuite and Evan Goldberg and Larry Ellison were creating a product that would really create this whole category of cloud systems. Another tech leader that I've enjoyed getting to know over the years is Steve Murphy, who's the CEO of Epicor. And if you're not familiar with Epicor, you can find out more about them right here. And while I was filming this video in Austin at Epicor's headquarters, I got to spend some time with Steve Murphy. And in that time, I got to learn about some of the product roadmap and the overall strategy of Epicor. And this is fascinating to me because Epicor is a product that's been around for a long time, especially in the manufacturing and distribution space. It's been a solid tier 2 ERP solution for years now, but it's just more recent that I feel like Epicor has really sort of turned the corner in terms of really investing heavily in the product as well as in their overall implementation ecosystem. And they've also assembled a very strong leadership team, in my opinion. So it's great to get to know Steve, and I'd love to share with you this interview that I had with him while I was in Austin meeting with him. So Steve, you're CEO of the company.
Yes.
You've been here for what, 5 years, 6 years?
6 years. 6 years.
Well, congratulations. It's
Thank you.
More than a lot of CEOs make it. And
that's true.
What is it you're focused on here at the company? What can we expect from Epicor here in the next, say, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I think that from a focus perspective, the best thing that I can do is look outward. So when I say look outward, it's really stay in touch with our customers and make sure that they're thrilled with the product. And if we can do that, we'll continue to be very successful. And when I say thrilled, it's not an exaggeration because it's not good enough for our products to be good. They have to be great because we compete against the biggest software companies in the world. Right. So that's the big area of focus for me.
Right. Now you guys are focused a lot on M&A growth as well as organic growth, but tell us a little bit about that growth strategy on both sides of the equation there.
Yeah, we do both. Most of our growth is organic, so we invest in R&D and we spend about 12% of revenue on R&D. But having said that, we'll deploy more capital over the next year to M&A in all likelihood than R&D. And in most cases, it is a customer request or something a customer's asked for where they say, we really think we'd like to buy this product if you had it, but it's got to be from a look and feel and integration perspective. Again, it's got to be holistic, it's got to be integrated into the user interface, and it's got to be something that we know our customers will really value. So in some cases, you could take a Steve Jobs that says, the customer doesn't know what they want until I tell them they want it. We don't see it that way. We think in most cases, our customers with their ERP system, they know what they want. And we really try to listen and meet those needs. And in some cases, it makes a lot more sense to buy it than make it. And in some cases, it makes more sense to make it. So that's the choice for us.
Right. That kind of leads into the whole best of breed versus single ERP system. So you have two strategies that are not mutually exclusive that you can pursue. You can build technology that's integrated end-to-end within one system, or you can go acquire different systems in a best of breed approach or some sort of hybrid. What's your general philosophy on that, or your general strategy going forward?
Yeah, great question, and you and I have seen this one come and go. What I will say is that for make, move, and sell, it's somewhat specialized. Whether it's a manufacturing plant or a high-volume distribution center or a retail operation that may even have a fleet of service vehicles, there is a real desire for deep functionality. So best of breed, to a certain extent, has been winning the day, and it's one of the reasons we're successful. Also true that they expect the ERP backbone to connect easily to anything and everything. So that's probably one of the bigger changes in the last 5 to 10 years is with the cloud, you can get both. You can get best of breed that easily integrates into whatever else you might have in a way that you can get the reports you want, or you can get the productivity tools you want, or you get a look and feel that's easy and runs well on a device. But overall for us, we've seen best of breed continue to be the deciding factor when it comes to the make, move, and sell economy, which is where we do our business.
Right. Yep. So that leads to another topic here, which is implementations themselves. You've talked a lot about the product and how you're growing the product suite and acquisitions and things of that nature. The implementations themselves, obviously that's just as important, arguably, maybe even more important than the product itself. So what are you guys doing to build out that ecosystem and to support partners and people that can help sell and deliver and implement the products that you're developing?
It's a huge deal. And when you think about the requirement of getting the software up and running, the customer has expectations that that's going to be done quickly and that they're going to get everything they want. So it's an area of focus for us. I think that the customer experience, to the point you just made, is probably the new competitive battleground as much as product, if not more. And for us to build the ecosystem is important and continues to be a big area of focus. If you think about it, if there aren't people out there that are skilled engineers and process people that know Epicor, we can't succeed. So we continue to recruit, spend money, and invest in partnerships and product that attract people to that ecosystem. And it's something we're having a lot more success with than we did 6 years ago. I'm not going to take any credit for it. What I will say is, with scale and user adoption, we get a stronger and stronger ecosystem. And it's quantity and quality. Some of it is just flat out investing in a channel, making sure they get a good cut. They make money on the Epicor deal. And then some of it is ensuring that they're certified and they're skilled. And when they show up, they really know our product and the customers are happy with it. But it continues to be a big area of focus. I will underscore one more time, you're probably right, that it is at least as big an issue as product.
What about internationally? I get a lot of questions from prospective clients and just people in the community that are asking about certain parts of the world, Middle East or Africa, asking, is Epicor relevant in our regions? Do we have a partner network here? Is there an ecosystem to support us? What is your view of the global strategy?
Yeah, so we definitely are relevant, depending on the region, some more relevant than others. But for instance, if it's the United Kingdom, or it's Western Europe, or it's Australia, New Zealand, or some of the more populated areas of Asia like Hong Kong, Singapore, parts of China, Guangzhou, Shanghai, we have a big presence and we've got a significant ecosystem there to rely on. Every once in a while, if somebody in a faraway place wants to buy the product and there's no ecosystem, I would be the first person to tell them, hey, we need to figure that out ahead of time, because that's a big deal. But we've grown dramatically internationally. Our SaaS business has increased more than 15-fold since I started as far as our international business. Wow. So it's grown, it's a 9-figure business, well into the 9 figures.
Right. What are you most excited about? Like, if you look at the future of Epicor and the industry in general, Epicor's position in the industry, what are you most excited about? It's an exciting time, and what I would say I'm most excited about is we have built and continue to build a company that has enduring value and is growing at a rapid clip. So continuing to do more of the same, which is build products customers love and products that are better than the competition, in some cases a lot better than the competition, and continue to invest in our customers in a way that they're thrilled with who we are and what we do. I think the other thing would be a culture where people want to work here and they want to stay and make it a career. We've got to promote from within so that anybody who comes to work here has a real career path. That's a big deal to me, and that's not a minor thing. That takes a lot of work. Yeah, so Eric, I think that continuing to build a company of enduring value, have it be a great place to work, and have products that our customers love. Like isn't good enough. They have to love our products, is what makes me excited. And I fully intend to keep doing that. And it is exciting. It's an exciting time in this business. And we're seeing growth rates we just haven't seen before. And I think we've got a tailwind that's going to keep those going for a while. Yeah, lots of opportunity out there for sure. What keeps you up at night when you think about that future and realizing that value or that vision of where you're headed? I think it's mostly the 4,300 employees we have. We've got people who rely on this company for their livelihood. It's their full-time job. And I do feel a lot of responsibility to make sure that we do well enough as a company that we can pay them well, they're treated well, they get respect when they work here, they've got a career. We pay out a bonus annually, and it's my intent that we should always pay that bonus at 100% or more, and not every year. It's not always easy to do that. So making sure that our employees have a great job, a stable work environment, and want to be here, that's probably the biggest thing. The next thing would be I've got a board that I'm accountable to, and they need to feel like the company's being well run and that they're getting at least the return they expect. And if they're getting that, they generally are highly supportive of what we're doing. And we're definitely firing on all cylinders, but I still wake up in the middle of the night thinking about all of those things and don't stay awake for too long. We're doing well enough that I tend to get a good night's sleep, but occasionally, perseverate over those topics. But people and the people who work here would be the thing I think the most about. Great. Well, it's I don't want to say it's a good problem to have, but it's a great area to focus on and make sure it doesn't become a problem. So that's right. The payback's big for focusing on that, that's for sure. So what I love about talking to Steve and learning more about Epicor is that Epicor is not trying to be everything to everyone. They've really focused in on where their strengths are, and they've invested heavily in those areas. So it's great to see a tech titan that isn't trying to be everything to everyone. They're not trying to dominate the entire world, but they are focusing on some very specific niches, and they're doing a great job of it. We're here playing you a clip of lessons from tech titans and clips from my interviews with CEOs of different software vendors. We've got a lot more to cover. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control.
I'm excited to share our newly released 2024 Digital Enterprise Operations Report. This free download is available on the Third Stage website at thirdstage-consulting.com. This report is truly packed full of technology-independent and agnostic insights for your project to ensure that you're strategically optimized for success. Download your copy today with the QR code in front of me or visit our website for more details.
Hi, this is Eric Kimberling with Third Stage Consulting and your host of Transformation Ground Control. I want to encourage you to read our Guide to Organizational Change Management. It's a free report or free guide that we published. It's one that I actually wrote that talks about best practices and lessons learned as it relates to change management. So as you know, on this podcast, we cover a lot of stuff related to the human sides of change, organizational change management, including training, communications, org design, all kinds of stuff as it relates to change management. So if you're trying to learn more about change management or you're looking for more direction and ideas on how to get started on your change management strategy and your overall journey, be sure to check out this guide. You can read it by scanning the QR code on the screen in front of you or in the links below for this particular podcast episode. You can find a link to take you to the page that will allow you to register to go ahead and download that and read it for free. So be sure to check it out. It's the Guide to Organizational Change Management, written by yours truly. I hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think, and hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 168. My name is Eric Kimberling. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. You can also find past episodes of the show at transformationgroundcontrol.com. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting, and Third Stage Consulting is the sponsor of the show and also an independent tech-agnostic consulting firm. So we're in the midst of helping or actually chatting about lessons from Tech Titans. I'm playing you a clip of my compilation of interviews with different CEOs from several different software vendors. Let's jump back into the conversation. Next, I want to introduce you to Kevin Samuelson, who is the CEO of Infor. And Infor, if you don't know, is a solid player in the Tier 2 market. They have a product called Cloud Suite, which is widely used among mid-size and even larger manufacturing and distribution organizations. And getting to know Kevin has been great because he has a unique leadership style, unique personality, and he has some pretty interesting thoughts on the strategy of the company. I recently had a chance to sit down with Kevin in person at Infor's global headquarters in New York City. So let's go ahead and roll that clip.
The highest level, the way we think about it is, ERP runs the most important processes for all of our customers in our core industries. And yet, when we look at the market and when we meet with customers, a lot of what we hear is, we love the potential of ERP. We know there's a lot of value there, but my gosh, the cost, pain, and risk to implement software is so difficult. Then the opportunity to take that software and allow it to continue to be flexible and add value over time is such a hurdle that there's got to be a better way to deploy and use ERP. And so our entire strategy is, how do we take on those massive challenges in the industry so that we can create and deliver software that's easy to deploy, adds value, and is agile enough to adapt as companies need it to as their markets and industries change.
Right.
And that's what we're here to do, and think there's a unique opportunity to do and deliver software very differently that we want to take advantage of.
Yeah. How does that compare or contrast to what other software vendors are doing in the marketplace, and how do you fit against those other competitors and vendors?
Yeah, so it's drastically different on a number of different fronts. Number one, we have a core belief that to really do something different in ERP, you have to be very industry focused. Now, it's in vogue to say industry focused, but let me describe what that really means to us. It starts with the product. We don't write one ERP platform and try to sell it into every single industry. We write an ERP platform for a very select number of industries, and that means that every single feature, function, configuration is set up so it can be deployed very quickly in an industry. We have the actual best practice capabilities and processes pre-configured in the product. We can then attach RPA and other things onto that. So by being industry focused, it starts with a product all the way through from feature function to deployment. Our individual people are also experts in those industries. So from sales to delivery to support, our teams only focus on a few specific industries. So our belief is, by massively changing how we build and product, how we deliver it, how we support it, with a lot of industry knowledge, that can really unlock a lot of value, deploy more quickly, and like I said, allow for more agility over time.
So you're not taking a one-size-fits-all approach. You're taking more of an industry-focused approach to the different applications you guys deploy.
You got it. I mean, we are laser-focused on 7 industries, healthcare in the U.S., and then a few in discrete manufacturing, a few in process manufacturing, and we are all in on those, and that's a big, big differentiation point relative to the alternatives.
Right. Now, Coke has been a big investor in the company, not the beverage company Coke,
yes,
but
that's
the
right.
private equity venture capital firm. How has that affected that investment from Coke? How has that affected your strategy going forward?
It's been an enormous unlock for us as it relates to strategy. And I'll give you a couple of very specifics. The first is, Coke is private and very large and very well capitalized. And I think one of the challenges in the industry as a whole is customers buy our software and their customers for 10 or 20 years. And the challenge is in a public environment, you've got these quarters, and every quarter you've got to post a sales number. And that requires, from our perspective, a lot of sort of unnatural things to get things sold that maybe aren't in the best interest of customers. And our ability to be able to think long-term, to make much larger investments, and to partner with our customers and do what's in their best interests, we think allows us to do all sorts of things differently, from how we build our software, how we sell it, of course, how we deploy it, how we add value over time. And that wouldn't be possible without being private with lots and lots of capital, and not just the ability, but the encouragement to make big bets and challenge the status quo. And it's an unbelievably unique organization that allows us to do that.
Yeah, and scale faster, ultimately, I imagine.
No question.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Great. So where do you see Infor headed in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, we're definitely headed for great things. I think we spent billions of dollars completely rewriting our products into those industry-specific suites that are multi-tenant enabled, that offer the latest technology. That was a big, big bet that we made. Those were completed a couple of years ago. We've had really dramatic growth in our SaaS business as a result. We've put a lot into everything from our culture to how we're organized to how we deploy differently. And just from our advantage, just at the very beginning of seeing all of that pay off. And if you kind of look at history, every time there's a big change in technology, so think mainframe to client server or client server to the cloud, there's a complete change in leadership. You probably can't name any of the mainframe players that were around because they were all taken out by the client server players. A lot of other elements in software, other areas, same thing has happened. Cloud companies have come along and displaced the legacy client server companies. We think ERP is sort of at that stage where there is an opportunity for someone to disrupt the status quo. And we're obviously biased, but we think with the big investments, the differentiated strategy, the ability to make big bets, we're in a position to now do that. And so we're super optimistic about the next few years.
Yeah, sounds exciting.
Definitely.
What about the things that keep you up at night as you look to execute this strategy going forward? What are the biggest risks you see? What keeps you up at night?
A lot of things keep me up at night, but I think I feel great about where we are with the products. Like I said, I feel great about our ability to do things that are long-term. I still think the biggest opportunity that exists is how do we make sure that the entire experience for a customer is seamless? And the way I think us and most software companies are set up is you've got an engineering team and a sales team and a services team, but that's not really the way that customers want to experience the software experience. And so how do we better organize our structure, but frankly, how do we better further our culture to make sure that us and our teams are thinking about that entire customer journey and become much more seamless to work with?
Right.
My general view is if we've got the deep industry knowledge, we really understand opportunity, we've got the advantage products and technology, that final piece that I think we're still working to optimize is how do we just change that overall experience, which with 17,000 people and thousands of customers, that's a big lift. But I think that's what keeps me up at night because I feel like that's a big unlock that we still have in front of us.
Now, what's really interesting about Infor is that Infor has had such an aggressive acquisition strategy over the years. And it's interesting to hear from Kevin how they're integrating some of those systems and not necessarily trying to replace all of those legacy systems and force everyone onto one platform. Instead, they're kind of rolling with the idea that there's different solutions that are meant for different situations, which is a breath of fresh air, in my opinion, in the enterprise technology space. Another tech titan that I've gotten to know in recent years is Jan Baan, who is the founder of Baan ERP software. And Baan software was actually started back in the 1970s, and they, in many ways, created this whole category of ERP software. When Baan came around in the late 70s, I don't think ERP really had a name at the time. And in the early days of ERP systems, Baan was the gold standard. Baan was the number one market share long before SAP came around. And then, of course, SAP in the 90s sort of took over that top spot. And Baan continues to this day to be owned and operated by Infor. And we just spoke with Kevin Samuelson from Infor. And one of the acquisitions that Infor had made many years ago is the acquisition of Baan. And that system to this day still exists, although it exists in other systems at this point. So I had the opportunity to interview Jan Baan in my podcast, not only to talk about the evolution of Baan and sort of his history starting Baan, but also hearing his really interesting thoughts about where the ERP software market is headed in the future. And to me, that's the most interesting part of the conversation. So we'll roll you a partial clip here of the conversation with Jan Baan from my podcast. But again, if you want to watch the full interview, I encourage you to check out the links below. How did you know, or why did you think at the time that the cloud
I
would
was
become
I was an early bird in WebEx. There was no one. WebEx was a small company, Silicon Valley. I helped them in the IPO process. I invested 50 million, 60 million, later on more, and I allowed them to do freemium. And even Zoom was not there when I invested in WebEx, because they sold it to Cisco, and then Eric came from there and started Zoom. Now, I was the early bird there, and I saw WebEx as a business tool, as more a tool to see the web meeting as a war room for the business. That was my drive. And then I learned, and in Baan, I see what you see when a company, I was on that moment, when we did IPO, I had 60%. But on the moment, I maybe the biggest shareholder, but still 35% or so. But I have a board and management. But management, in my opinion, I've given them too much freedom. They moved more from customer intimacy to M&A, and I should say more filling the pockets with selling divested shares. That is, I make my mistake from in the beginning, focusing on customer intimacy, and too much I was naive and let them go in what I call shareholders value. But then I learned shareholders, there are no shareholders, because I did not understand them. You should call them share movers, because no one is holding. And it's the problem. I was so naive, I was thinking these people are for life with me, but no, they're gambling with you. Now, and that's the element, the challenge with the VCs, etc., is kind of real, not so attractive for the disruptive innovation. And therefore I quit. And with my WebEx knowledge and top tier knowledge, top tier was the first XML portal. Later on, I sold it to SAP. We sold it for 400 million to SAP to replace their NetWeaver. And it was also tremendous technology. I was founded already, but I saw it was not complete enough. And it was not consumerized enough. And then we moved what we today see, like the REST API, like infrastructure as a service, like what you see in Google, in Amazon, etc. Now, the middleware layer for ERP is thinking, I'm saying often. It's not, it's architectural, done by the knowledge of the last century of ERP, but not done with a native cloud. Now, that is what I learned. Right. To start again in the cloud, you have to do a totally other way of thinking than in on-premise transactional ERP.
Right.
And realize, Eric, everything is stored in the transaction and is stored in concrete. Now, in BPM, the rules were already decoupled, and 1 second before the transaction, you could change the rules. Now, in MRP, it's too much stored in concrete. And you have no choice. I put the process through your throat.
Right.
That was the biggest, limitation. Is it on ERP? But so far good enough if it is backend, but not good enough if it goes downstream.
Right. That's very interesting. I wish I could say that back in 1998, I too predicted the advent of the cloud, but I did not. I was still trying to figure out what ERP software was.
I worked with the guys of I2 also, but they were more on the rule engines.
Right. Interesting. So what about What about Vanderburg, the company you founded? You're CEO of a company called Vanderburg right now. What can you tell us about Vanderburg and what are you up to these days?
In Vandenberg, I had a castle in Vandenberg. It was my also my holding company. But then in the mid of when I started BPM, we had this BPM layer, and I had even another investor in it. But I invested something new, what we call the beginning of microservices, and we built it already in the mid 90s, say in 2005 or so anywhere. And then my board was a little obsolete, a little afraid in what we did. And I decided that, okay, let me take it again. And I bought it private back. And I called it to my castle and therefore I call it Vandenberg. And it was my third startup after BPM. We moved then to the second part of the internet.
Right.
And that was the beginning even of the workflow. Because in Cordis, I built silos. Sorry, in Baan, I built silos. In Cordis, I built processes to the inbound enterprise. But there is no supply chain. Even today, there's no supply chain because you are not collaborative, you're not dynamic. Now, then we moved to the workflow, and that's a part of the supply chain, to the collaborative workflow.
Interesting. So when you say you built silos at Baan, are you talking about modules? Like it was a module-based system?
Yeah, we did it already nice, but the problem is the good thing is we have a unique point where no one came there. We had a custom order decouple point. And in the custom order decouple point, you could decouple everything, every type of engineer to order, make to stock. And we decoupled it after the warehouse layer on the latest moment. No one did it before. That have given the unique element, and we had our dynamic enterprise modeling where you did even the implementation stuff on the same element. That was unique, and every component was decoupled, and we built our famous Baan shell. Now, the Baan shell is now still executing in Infor everything to the internet. That means in internet, maybe Infor is the only one who takes the same source code, the same functionality immediately in the cloud. Because they have not to replace the code. The code was executed with a Baan shell to CPU, called the CPU now the internet. It was database independent, and it was operating system independent, called the operating system now infrastructure as a service. And they were able to connect it to Amazon like they before connected to Unix.
Interesting.
And there is Infor is still amazing today. And simpler. If that's the reason I was amazed that my old Baan product is still in the top of the ERP. Now, and it is simpler than Oracle and then SAP to implement the complex variety of business processes in the enterprise.
Right. Yeah. It is amazing that the product is still around and a lot of companies still using Baan, and I know Infor has been supporting it now for some time now. So rewinding back to 1978, you said you started Baan?
Yeah.
So 1978, you start a company called Baan. Why did you start the
not
company?
Not Baan. I started a consulting company. I was a bookkeeper and maybe a controller. And then I came by accident in Silicon Valley in 81, 82. And I was selling already some microcomputers from a company called Durango in San Jose. And then I was the first one who sold this stuff what normally was used by toys, by Apple, etc. They used by toys. We used already an 8-bit 64K machine in multitasking, multi-user in the 80s, in 82. Now, and then I came at home by the CEO of Durango, and the guy saying, I'm now going to Unix. I say, oh, then I have to go to Unix. And then we built our famous Baan shell from that moment. But it was always done on, I think, state-of-the-art technology. All my competitors like ASK were on minis. And we were the only one were on microcomputers, and then we adapt with the microcomputers, we adapt Unix from the beginning. Like today, Linux, Unix, we never went in .NET. I see it. Unix was far more professional on it, and Unix have given us all the power to build this stuff like the Baan shell. Now, we were in tools like Progress, but we were not selling the tools. But the tools were integrated by the application developers. That was unique elements. Right. Then I moved to India, and our real success is that I was already in the mid-80s in India, and very soon I had 1,000 engineers, where 10 years later, no one was even there. SAP, Oracle, they were even in the first 10 years not in India. Now, then there I have in-depth technology with top people. I pay them extremely high salary, but it was in rupees, and I was selling the product in dollars and in euros. Now, and I trust them. That was also the other secret. The secret in Baan was that we were more an Indian company and link them together.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I mean, another trend that you saw before the rest of the world did, which is very impressive. And if you look back at your time in the enterprise technology space so far, not just with Baan, but with the BPM company and now with Vanderberg, what are some of the biggest lessons that you have from the industry, and what might you do differently if you could go back and do it over again?
First of all, often you sometimes underestimate yourself, and too much I maybe have given authorization out of my hands and have given it in the hands of the managers. And they have a different view. I mentioned already, they're looking to the short term. And disruptive innovation sometimes takes you 10 years before you're there. And you have to be patient and do it this one. It's perseverance, not give up. And most go back, customer intimacy is the most important one. Focus and too much I make my mistakes and even allow them to go to shareholders value and all the other stuff, etc. If greed is drive you, and if it's only the money, then it's not joyful, but that is the most dangerous part in it. And we overestimate, because we are only down to earth, we are manufacturers. I learned what I do is a manufacturing process. And not so many people are doing it. I have the bill of material with all these components. I'm composing this one. I learned from Boeing and everything that I have to be like them, a manufacturer. What I did, decoupling, late binding, and all the manufacturing principles. I built that, I call it my own software factory. Now, and that is what we did in India. And again, learn again to go now more to UX and go more to user. In the beginning, we ignore too much the user. That's the problem. What we see with ERP, it's too much generic. My innovation is what you have to do, but now we move to mass customizing. To some elements, we make it generic, like a mobile, but on the same moment, it's becoming specific. And the power is, an enterprise should not be the same. Porter expected that with new technology, we can be all different, but we all coming the same, like Fleming in SAP and use the same functionality. And there's no differentiator. Now, we should destroy this. And we should say, take only a generic part. Like in a car, some things are generic, but your dashboard is specific. And it's a decouple point, and bring it there.
So that's Jan Baan, the founder of Baan Software, sharing some of his thoughts on the ERP software space. And I'll be honest, after completing that interview with him, my head was spinning. It was so full of stuff that I didn't know, and he got me thinking about ERP technologies in a whole new way. So if you like that little clip you saw right there, I highly encourage you to check out the full interview, because it's really good. It's one of the best interviews that I've done in my podcast. We're here playing you a clip of lessons from Tech Titans and clips from my interviews with CEOs of different software vendors. We got a lot more to cover. We'll be right back with more Transformation Ground Control. My name is Eric Kimberling, and I'm the CEO and founder of Third Stage Consulting. Before we dive too far into today's content, I want to invite you to learn a little bit more about Third Stage Consulting, who we are and what we do. We help clients through their entire digital transformation life cycles, beginning with digital strategy, software evaluation and selection, all the way through and including implementation planning, implementation readiness, and the actual implementation itself. We're technology agnostic, so we only represent our clients' best interests. We do not represent software vendors. But having said that, we work very closely with software vendors, all the leading players that you can imagine we've worked with, both in helping clients evaluate and select them, but also in helping clients implement those solutions as well. So we have a very broad, objective, agnostic view of the market that is meant to really represent your interest as you go through your digital transformation. I also encourage you to scan this QR code right here to get access to our resource center. This resource center has a ton of information, a ton of ebooks that are free. You have access to top 10 software rankings, playbooks for how to make your project more successful, guides to change management, YouTube videos, all kinds of stuff that are going to help you through your digital transformation. So I encourage you to scan this QR code to get access to those resources. And please feel free to reach out to me directly to brainstorm ideas about your project. Even if it's just informally, you want to bounce around some ideas and get some informal advice, I'd be happy to spend some time with you. So feel free to reach out to me. I've included my contact information below. You can also find it in the description field of this video as well.
Are you looking for ways to promote your product or service to enterprise technology decision makers and influencers throughout the world, like the ones who listen to this podcast? Major Tom Productions creates media, events, and influencer marketing for B2B technology providers. Our productions are exciting, educational, disruptive, and effective. Most importantly, they create results. Our content is unlike any other in this industry, engaging, influential, and trusted by technology buyers and influencers throughout the world. Each month, our productions reach hundreds of thousands of targeted buyers and decision makers who trust and engage with our honest and tech-agnostic content. With long-tail viral results and engagement with our content, Major Tom Productions provides a way to reach your target market and create awareness, calls to action, and a connection with potential customers. So collaborate with us today. Learn how we can feature your product or service on podcasts such as Transformation Ground Control, Journey to S/4HANA, and Journey to Dynamics 365. We can also feature your brand on our YouTube channel called Digital Transformation with Eric Kimberling, which boasts over 100,000 subscribers and over 2 million video views per year. You can also participate in our in-person events, including our Digital Stratosphere Conference. Contact us today to learn more. We can tailor a marketing campaign that works for you. We look forward to helping more people learn more about and become engaged with your brand.
Hello, welcome back to Transformation Ground Control, episode number 168. My name is Eric Kimberling. You can find new episodes of this show every Wednesday by going to transformationgroundcontrol.com. You can also find past episodes of the show at transformationgroundcontrol.com. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting, and Third Stage Consulting is the sponsor of the show and also an independent tech-agnostic consulting firm. So we're in the midst of helping, or actually chatting about lessons from Tech Titans. I'm playing you a clip of my compilation of interviews with different CEOs from several different software vendors. Let's jump back into the conversation. Another leader that I've had the good fortune of getting to know and interviewing is Lisa Pope, who's the president of Epicor. Earlier in this video, we spoke with Steve Murphy from Epicor, who's the CEO of Epicor, and Lisa is the president. And she's primarily in charge of growth and some of the strategic initiatives of Epicor. And Lisa's really interesting because not only does she have a key leadership role at Epicor, but she's also a woman in technology, which is more rare than it should be. But she also has worked with several different software vendors and has a very broad understanding of different software vendors, having spent time at some of the leading ERP providers prior to joining Epicor. So my conversation with Lisa was at their headquarters in Austin, and it's a very interesting one. So let's roll that clip here. So you guys are growing a lot globally. Tell us a little bit about your expansion plans for now and in the future.
Yeah, I think we've had dramatic growth over the last 5 years internationally, and it's been a big part of our overall growth strategy. We've got a lot of opportunity there. We've got the ability still to bring new products overseas, right? We've recently moved our Profit 21 product to be sold overseas, as well as our BizTrack product for lumber and building materials. So in the past, we've been predominantly focused on just selling our manufacturing solutions. So we've got the ability to continue to release more of our product lines over in Europe and overseas, and then in addition, just additional scale by the geographies, right? So we obviously have strong presence in LATAM, in the UK. We've got the ability really to expand through a lot of the European countries and continue to do more expansion in Asia as well as India. So we look at both the product side and the geography side, and both of those I think are big areas. Right. Also, you know, we've done international, I think, very smart in terms of we've really let our customers sort of help prioritize international for us, right? So many companies now are global, right? Even a small company today can start e-commerce and all of a sudden be global overnight. So for us, as customers have expanded and have gone more global, then we're wanting to make sure that we stay ahead of that and that we're there to support them in the countries that they're operating. So we've been able to sort of scale that expansion, you know, appropriately. Right. And then finally, acquisitions. right? So one of the things we're always looking for is areas that complement our business. And so we have definitely been looking for acquisitions internationally that will sort of add to our scale and our product capability. We purchased Data Interchange. They're an EDI provider, very involved and very well known in Europe, and that's a good example of sort of adding to our capability globally with a specific acquisition.
Right. Now, growing the company successfully obviously depends on a solid product, but also a solid network of partners that can not only sell the product, but implement the product. In the past, one of the problems I think Epicor has had is that they didn't have a strong VAR and partner network. Going back 10 years or so, I think that was a challenge for the company in its growth. It focused a lot on the product, but not enough on the implementation network. What are you guys doing differently now that you're here and others from your team are here? What are you doing to address that, and how are you building out that ecosystem?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. You know, when I got here, we had a channel, but it wasn't well organized. We didn't have a lot of enablement to sort of, you know, keep those partners educated and really focused on staying very committed to Epicor. So we saw a lot of churn. So one of the first things we did is we really did establish a partner and a channel environment, right? We gave them a specific territory to focus on, in some cases specific industries where they had specialization where they could focus, and made it very available and had market areas that they could then sort of get some market share in and really succeed. We expanded, brought in a couple of key people to run both of our influencer and our strategic alliances, as well as some of the run and really grow our channel. And that starts with definitely enablement. It's making sure that they're trained, that they're supported, that there's, you know, leads flowing to them, right, and that those leads are protected, right? That's where you get into a lot of issues, is sort of channel conflict. And then also working with our direct teams to understand how a channel can help. And so by raising sort of a bar that our channel can play in, what that also allowed us to do is take our direct resources, and instead of sort of saturating one market, we've been able now to take our direct sales force and really move into upper mid-market and lower enterprise, because we have a stronger channel now that can cover, you know, that SMB and lower mid-market. So we definitely have plans to continue to expand that. Obviously in international, we're a very, very strong partner channel, so we're definitely leveraging a lot of those best practices back here in the Americas to drive that same kind of revenue share. But I think lots of opportunity, not just with partners to sell the software, but as you mentioned, implementation partners. So we've definitely been looking at strategic system integrators to assist us. We're working with a number of consulting firms that do business process work. And again, as we move into larger customers, they definitely want, you know, more choice, more capability. But I think for our core market, you know, the idea that Epicor sold and serviced and, you know, basically supported the client, there's a lot of value in that. It does differentiate us from some of our competition, because for a big piece of our market, they are able to come to Epicor, and Epicor really can do a lot. But to your point, there are areas of the market that we really did need to sort of improve our ecosystem. And we've definitely made huge gains in that in the last 5 years, and especially this next year, lots of expansion plans there.
Right. So looking not just at next year, but say the next 5 years, what are you most excited about, and where do you see the company going here in the next few years?
You know, there's so much opportunity at Epicor. I definitely still think there's more opportunity at the upper end, right? Because we've been very successful growing into that space with our base, right? So, you know, I have one of our strategic customers, when we sold them 3 years ago, was $2.7 billion. We met with them, you know, a couple weeks ago, and now they're almost $12 billion. Their 3-year plan is to be $20 billion. So, you know, if you'd said, let's go sell a $20 billion company, I'd probably say, well, is that really in our spot? But when you evolve with the customer and you're able to scale with them, now that we've done it, we're kind of at a point where, like, well, now we're getting invited to compete on a lot more larger opportunities, because we have such a large, strong reference. And so we've been able to sort of move into that space, you know, again, sort of at a pace that allowed us to scale it, not try to make something happen. So I think that's exciting to me. We're getting a lot of market perception at that higher end, and obviously those clients are important to us with industry consolidation. You don't want to not focus on the upper end, because ultimately they are purchasing a lot of the companies, in the mid-market.
Right.
And then I think the other thing that's really exciting to me is sort of that the SMB and that channel space. I see tremendous opportunity for us to continue to grow channels, especially vertical specific areas where we can have channel partners really bring extra expertise. So I think on both sides, we've got tremendous opportunity.
Yeah. So when you think about that opportunity, there's risk along the way and there's growing pains and challenges. What keeps you up at night? What are the things that keep you up at night?
Yeah, I think for me, the main thing is the whole culture shift from selling software and saying, okay, here, we'll implement it for you, and now we leave and you run it, right? That's the old sort of software methodology, and clearly in a SaaS environment, that relationship's changed, right? We don't leave. We stay, we're still running the software. In effect, we are running the company's backbone for them so that they can focus on their customers and their products. And so it's a very different relationship. And I think we've made huge strides inside the company, first of all, to change the culture and the mindset that we're not selling software, we are providing a mission-critical service for our clients. And so that concept of sense of urgency and making sure that you have the customer's best interest and how would this affect them if they're running 7x24 globally, right? Or you're at Ace Hardware on a Sunday and the line is out the door. How do we make sure that that they can take an order on a self-service device and whatever they may need to make sure that they can handle that kind of volume. So for us, that culture shift has certainly started within the company. But that's a big area I'll be focusing as well, especially this next year, is a customer experience, really strategic initiative to continue to drive that change in our processes and the way we think, and really evolving to a service-based philosophy and understanding the mission-critical nature of what we do in this make, move, sell, because our customers are all essential. They're all, providing significant service to, the rest of the world, and so they're not, they're not businesses that can shut down, and so it's a lot of responsibility, but in a good way.
Right.
I think it's we have a really unique brand that is very focused on that essential marketplace, and so there's a purpose associated with that.
Right. So that's the in-person interview I did with Lisa. I also had the opportunity to interview Lisa on my podcast, and so there's a more detailed interview that I did with her there. You can find a link to that in the description below of this video. So another person I've had the opportunity to interview is Fabian Pinckaers, who's the CEO and founder of Odoo. And if you're not familiar with Odoo, they're the leading open source ERP software provider. They're based in Brussels, Belgium, and they've really sort of created a whole new niche within the ERP space. And it's a very unique product, a very unique offering, and really interesting one too, by the way. Not a great fit for every organization out there, but for some organizations it can be a really good fit. And so I had the opportunity to interview Fabian on my podcast, so I'll play you a partial clip of that here.
His question is, what is open source software? And basically open source means that it's a software that you can download, that you can modify, that you can change for free. And it's guaranteed that it's free from the license. So basically, it's come from the idea that knowledge should be shared, that we shouldn't create lock in our customers or on the software. So it's basically free and guaranteed by the license. Free to use, free to modify, free to distribute, and but having said that, the service is not free. From the rest, the service is like traditional software. So what differs from the traditional ERP is actually not that much. It's just another license. And for the rest of the service, so like the way you implement software or the way the software evolves from the software vendor perspective, the research and development is actually the same. The only difference is that we work with communities all around the world, but we have the same quality development cycle than traditional vendors, where we host our own core base and we modify it.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, so it's a bit different from ERP solutions in that way. But
so I still don't see you, Eric. Okay,
so
he's asking a question. How is open source different from low code or custom dev solutions? So basically, open source is just a way to produce software. It's not a business model. It's not the business model is the same than traditional software. It's just a way to work better with the communities and open to the world with a more open approach to everything we do and more transparent. A low-code approach is just having a framework that allows to customize the system without development. And we have that with Odoo too. We have an application that it's called Odoo Studio that allows you to customize all your application without development. So we do both open source and we do also have a low-code solution where you can customize your own application or develop your own application without development. That's very useful to adapt the software to a lot of different clients without going in very highly expensive budget, because development always costs a lot. Odoo is not fully open source. It's what we call an open core business model, where you have part of the software that is free, open source, which is Odoo Community. It's one of our products. And we have another product, which is Odoo Enterprise, which is for a fee. And so 80% only of the features we have are open source. We still have 20% of our features that are for a fee. So it's a mixed model between proprietary software and open source software.
Okay, so that's a good overview of how open source systems like Odoo are different from off-the-shelf ERP systems, and also how it's different from low-code or custom developed solutions. How does an organization know if an open source solution like Odoo is a good fit? What kind of organizations do you find that Odoo is a better fit for than others?
I think organizations don't care about open source and shouldn't care about open source. I mean, open source is just a license. You don't choose your ERP or business apps based on the license. The license is important, but it's not what matters. What matters is that does it do the job for you? Is it complete? Does it cover all you need out of the box? So it's more about comparing product. Open source, in my opinion, is not a value for the end user. It's just a better way to produce software. The value for the end user is comparable with traditional ERP. And because we have this fast development model, we could get to a better value for our clients. But ultimately, what matters for the end user is not that it's open source, because at the end, it does like every other proprietary software. He pays a subscription. He has an implementation service company that does the service. He has warranties on his bug fix and his support. So at the end, it's the same. It's just that we have a better way to produce software in a much faster way, because as you can see with the evolution of Odoo, in just a few years, we are now talking in millions of users. Where when I started, the VCs told me you need 30 days to do an ERP, 30 years, sorry, to do an ERP. And we just did it in a short period of time because of this open and transparent approach.
Right. That's interesting. So what is it, how often do customers make significant changes to Odoo? You know, in that open source environment, one of the benefits I would think is that it has the flexibility to be able to modify the software, change the code. How often do customers actually do that versus just using it the way it's originally built?
So our approach is very similar to the traditional software, where we try to minimize development. Every partner has its own approach, so every implementation service company has its own approach. Some prefer to develop more, others prefer to develop less. We, as a software vendor, we recommend usually more standard implementation based on best practices rather than trying to redo everything. The good thing with Odoo is that we cover so much in standard that we go much further than the traditional ERP just out of the box. So we need less development than traditional software. Like traditional software, they don't do e-commerce, or they don't do business intelligence, or they do with different products that you have to integrate, so it costs a lot. They don't do point of sales. They don't go on social marketing. And with Odoo, all those things are completely out of the box. So when we usually answer to a large client, they have a list of requirements. The others, like SAP and Dynamics, most of the time, they answer with 6 or 7 different software. And they have to integrate things. And so it gets very complex and it costs a lot. With Odoo, it's different because we cover so much in standard, because we have 30,000 apps from the community app store, the largest app store in the world. We can deliver all these things in a single platform. So not only the customer has a better solution because everything is integrated, including his point of sale, his e-commerce, business intelligence, and so on, but also it's much easier to implement because integration costs a lot.
When you have customers that implement Odoo, they don't necessarily need to have a super deep technical competency in-house to be able to support a product like this. I mean, they could still use it sort of similar to how they would use an off-the-shelf system. Is that correct?
Yeah, and it's you're right, and it's actually what we want to do. We want to commoditize the ERP market. When I started, ERP costed a lot of money, even for small company. You had to 50,000 euro, 100,000 euro, even for the small companies. What we want to do is to make it affordable for everyone. And so for that, we need things to work out of the box and to cover all the things that the majority of the customer need. But on top of having all the features available out of the box, we also have like a large app store, so we can use apps from the community. And also Odoo Studio that allows you to customize with a few drag and drops so that you can do customization without going on the development side. And of course, obviously, if you need even more for the very large, when you start to get with 1,000, 2,000 users, you always have developments. And that there you can develop. And the good thing with open source is that we are based on modern technologies. I mean, it's Python, PostgreSQL, so developments are much easier than traditional software.
Right. Now, how has open source, or Odoo in particular, how has Odoo evolved over the years? I mean, what are some of the major advancements you've seen in open source in general, but more specifically to Odoo, the biggest leaps or improvements you've seen in the...
Yeah, every year the product is very, very different. If you have followed Odoo from version 10, 11, the gaps are really big. Look at the traditional ERPs from year to year, they always look the same, sometimes with a different design, but you still have these complex bloated things where Odoo is different. The way I see the thing is that a few years ago, 10 years ago, the complexity was to have to manage the business process and to have your accounting data consolidated from all the departments. That was what all the traditional ERPs tried to do. And they did it, and it works well. They support most of the core business process. But the thing is, now we have to go much further. And what we do at Odoo is not only support the business process, of course, is to really have a productivity tools for every employee. We want the worker in the shop floor to be more efficient, the accountant to do less manual recording, or the cashier for retailers that have better tools. And that's where I believe we went much faster than all the others, because nobody's there yet. They are all very painful to use, whereas Odoo is extremely simple and fast, because we focused on that since now 5 or 7 years, while the other were still trying to go on the cloud.
Yeah, that is a big liability of some of those legacy ERP vendors for sure.
Yeah.
What are some of the benefits of open source in general? You know, when you talk about open, and I think you've alluded to this in some of your...
There is still a benefit. So what I said, it's not very different from traditional software as a customer point of view. As a development point of view, it's very different, because we have close to 100,000 people who lives on Odoo. It's their full-time job. So we get feedback from all around the world, contributions, and so on. So as a development point of view, it allows the product to grow faster. But there is still a very big advantage for the customer, is that there is no lock-in. One of the main issues that customers have with traditional ERP is the big lock-in. You never know what's going to be the price. The price might increase year after year. It's not easy to switch technology. It's not easy to find consultant that knows the technology. The thing with open source is that it's taught in a lot of universities, so you have resources all around the world. It's open, so students can learn, or people can learn even without having to be partner with a large name. And also because with Odoo specifically, when you have 80% open source and 20% for a fee, the customer has access to the source code. So we don't lock in for every time he needs something. If, for instance, we are too expensive, he can just ask someone else. And so that creates a pressure on the price, and as a result, the price of the subscription is much lower, because we cannot afford to charge the same price than the others do, because our biggest competitor is our open source product.
Right. And who is your biggest competitor?
It's Odoo Community. So we have Odoo Enterprise that we sell, and Odoo Community is our open source product. It's our biggest community. If we lose a deal, they go for the free version. Maybe I should... It's not totally true. Also, that's for the pressure on the price. On the market, I don't consider that we have a competitor. So obviously, there are plenty of players on this market. There are hundreds of ERPs and business apps and so on. But despite the fact that SAP or Microsoft spend billions of dollars to reach the SMEs market, they all failed. I mean, for the small companies, the equipment rate is barely nothing. For the mid-sized companies, it's 18% equipment rate, despite the fact that everyone tried. So basically, nobody succeeded. including us. We didn't succeed neither. We do less than 1% of the market. So the way I see the thing is that we are not fighting against competitors, because nobody succeeded to make something affordable and real productivity tools for the employees. We are trying to do something that nobody did before. We are trying to make management software accessible, affordable, and real productivity tools where the users save time instead of losing time recording data in a system. And that's something that nobody succeeded to do. So for me, it's not about the technical fighting about a competitor. It's more a technical challenge that we have to crack.
So that's a partial clip of my interview with Fabian, the CEO and founder of Odoo. He's someone that is very good at marketing, very good at product development. He's got a vision for what his product can be and how it fits in the market. So he's a really interesting guy. And if you'd like to watch the full interview, you can go to the link below. You can watch the full interview from my podcast. All right, great stuff. I hope you enjoyed that conversation with some of the tech leaders in the space, some of the CEOs that are leading these companies and at the forefront of innovation, looking at where the industry is headed. I certainly love every time I get a chance to sit down with a CEO or anyone high up within a software vendor, because they have such a unique perspective and they see so much, with their various clients and their global reach and that sort of thing. And of course, their work with R&D and innovation, you kind of get to see behind the scenes of what they're working on, where they see the industry going, where they're taking the industry too. Quite frankly, they're the ones leading this industry, so it's always good to see and chat with some of these people. So I'm curious to hear from you which interview you enjoyed the best. I didn't play the entire interview, obviously, for any of these. They're just clips of the full interviews, which, by the way, you can find on my YouTube channel. Just go to my YouTube channel, look up Eric Kimberling. If you're not already subscribing to me, search Eric Kimberling on YouTube, subscribe to me, and then you'll find that video. If you just search Tech Titans or Tech Leaders, you'll find that video. It was published in April of 2024. You'll find it there on my channel. But curious to hear from you. Which of those interviews did you enjoy the most? Which leader, which CEO gave you the most insights and the most interesting perspectives? I'd love to hear your feedback in the comments below. So hope you enjoyed this episode. We've got lots of great guests coming up in upcoming weeks from now. Just to give you a preview of what to expect here in the next few weeks. We've got next week, we're going to have failure lessons from an expert witness. We're going to have Scott Janke, who's a Dr. Scott Janke, who's one of our team members at Third Stage Consulting. He is heavily involved with our expert witness work, and he'll talk about what some of the lessons are from digital transformation failure. So be sure to stick around for that episode coming up next week. We'll also have a lot of different topics coming up, including insights from 100,000 ERP case studies, intro to smart factories. We're going to talk about Industry 4.0, change leadership. We're going to talk about platform as a service coming up in June. We'll have an episode where we talk about platform as a service and software integration. We'll talk about supply chain management. We're going to have a best of episode coming up, business consolidation and integration. A lot of different stuff coming up. So we've got a lot of really good guests on the schedule that I'm really excited for. So always trying to improve and increase the caliber of speakers and guests as we go. And if you have any suggestions, I'm always open to hearing your ideas. If there's any topics or speakers you think would be worth me reaching out to, that'd be great. And of course, like I mentioned before, anyone that's in touch with Larry Ellison, just let him know I'm waiting to interview him. So I'd love to have him on the show. So anyway, hope you have a great week, and we'll see you next week on Transformation Ground Control. Have a great week in the meantime, and we'll see you soon. Take care.